Welcome back, Martini Giant fans. This is episode number 100, a very special episode for many good reasons. The first thing being that we have invited onto our show for this 100th episode, Dr. Scott Ross. I have known Scott for many years. He is one of the original founders of Digital Domain way back in 1993, and sort of a godfather of a lot of the innovation that happened in the world of visual effects. A very important person, and it was a true honor to have him to come on to the podcast with Eric and Dan and I. So very happy that Scott was able to join us. And of course, we asked Scott, what movie do you want to cover? And he chose the perfect Martini Giant episode to do for our 100th episode, Apocalypse Now. As you guys know, Apocalypse Now is an absolutely amazing film, directed, of course, by Francis Ford Coppola in 1979. And of course, this show goes long, as it always does, and Scott was only able to join us for the first 2 hours, but Dan and I and Eric continued to go for another hour and a half beyond that in the true fashion of Martini Giant. So very excited to have that. Now, the other big announcement to do is that for our next 100 episodes, we are trying to do a complete renaissance of what Martini Giant is. So the first thing we're actually going to be doing is we are actually going to be starting to do these on video form. So you can go to the Martini Giant page and check out our YouTube link in there, and you can go to our YouTube channel and you'll be able to see this whole thing in a video on YouTube, which is really, really cool. So go to martinigiant.com and check that out. And of course, as you guys know, we record all of these on Twitch, so don't forget to check us out on Twitch. This was actually recorded several weeks ago, but we'll be able to do that as well. So check out Twitch. Just go to twitch.tv/martini_giant, and we record all these shows, and we do watch parties generally on Saturdays around 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So go check that out. We'd really like to have you guys be part of the conversation on Twitch as well. And of course, you can join our Discord. And if you'd like to join our Discord, where you can make suggestions of films or just generally have banter with all the other Martini Giant fans, you can do that as well. And I'm going to put a QR code, which should be up right around here. And go check out that QR code, and it'll give you a link to our Discord. But for now, please enjoy, finally, 100 episodes, Apocalypse Now, with Dr. Scott Ross as our very, very special guest. All right, Scott.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, you're welcome. My pleasure.
Love the suggestion of Apocalypse Now. I know that those guys watched all 3 versions of it, so that's a big commitment of 9 hours of Apocalypse Now.
I was gonna, I mean, that's on my calendar anyway. That's most Wednesdays.
So Wednesday silver. Yes.
So it's been cool. Obviously, I don't think you need an introduction. I know who you are. I think most people know who you are. But just in case people don't realize who you are, I first met you when you were still the owner, one of the owners of Digital Domain and CEO of Digital Domain. And that was when I started my career in visual effects. On Day After Tomorrow, of all things, which is another Apocalypse Now moment.
In more ways than one.
Yeah. You were trying to keep the spirits up, kind of like Robert the Fall with the surfing. All the bombs are
one of these
going
days. This film's gonna end.
Yes. The best part about that movie is we had a visual effects supervisor who was blind in one eye too.
Yeah.
Really? Yeah. She had no ability to be able to see 3D. She also oversaw Terminator 2 3D as a supervisor, which I don't know how that happened because she couldn't see 3D. She had one eye that didn't work.
Wow. Maybe she just switched chairs while doing dailies.
Right.
It's funny, when I was talking earlier about grad school, there was a guy in grad school with me who is now a really famous, I won't give his name, production designer, and he's colorblind.
Wow.
That's amazing.
And I'm like, what? But grayscale, he's got nailed.
I've
in that.
His grayscale values
are really good.
He worked on Mank, right?
Exactly.
Unbelievable.
Exactly. Yeah.
I do know some compositors that have color blindness issues, and they work by the numbers. They just look at the numbers and say, "I think this is correct."
Right.
Yeah.
Whatever you guys are getting out of it, these are the numbers. That's right. It's like that bit from Ed Wood when he was like, "Oh, do you like the red one or the green one?" He's like, "I don't know, the dark gray one."
I remember back in the day, I when my freshman year in college, which would have been 1969, I drove up to Buffalo to see a friend, and I was driving with my roommate rhythm guitar player, my band friend. We're driving up, and it was fall, and it was magnificent. I mean, just magnificent. Yeah. And of course, we smoked a couple of doobies on the way, and as we're riding up, I'm going, God, Jeffrey, look at the colors of these trees. He said, wow. We realized later Jeffrey's colorblind. He saw none of the autumnal colors whatsoever. No. But in his mind,
right?
Yeah,
he's on point. That's all right.
Yeah, that's right.
Randy Sharp was telling us a story about how they figured out he was colorblind when he was a little kid. I guess he was playing in the backyard with some Legos, and his mom said, "Bring in clean up all your stuff and bring him in," and he did. And she yelled at him because he didn't bring in all the Legos, and she realized that he didn't bring in all the red ones, and they blended because the grass. He couldn't see the red ones in the grass.
Right. That's wild.
And I was like, oh yeah, that's how I figured I was colorblind.
Here's a question for you, Scott, for somebody who's done so much in your life. When you look at this movie again, because I always talk to these guys about the 70s and like for the music and for the film, does it make you look back at that era, like 79, like the Clash, like all this time of the 70s, like it's so different. The way you look at a movie all these years later, it's like still like watching it for the first time. And I don't get that a lot with newer films even from the 90s for me. It's just like, oh, okay. It doesn't have this wonder about it, I guess.
Well, I think
from that period.
I think the zeitgeist of the time was like Paris in the 1920s.
Yeah.
Where all of the art forms were sort of intertwined, and they were all making statements that we as a younger generation were looking to be able to make in a very sort of straight white IBM kind of world. Mm-hmm. And Apocalypse Now really was one of those kinds of films, but there were lots of them at that time. Yeah. And as a result, I think I'll give you an example. Years and years ago, I taught a college class in rock and roll. And, I would play these tracks of like Big Bill Brunzi and like real Delta blues stuff. And the students really reacted to it in a way that they could understand that it was the real deal, right? Mm-hmm. As opposed to taking a cover version of it, which they thought was pretty good and the production was great, the instrumentation, but they related so much more to the original because it was the real deal. It came from the artist's heart and soul, as opposed to, Whitney Houston doing a cover of something, or, right. Mariah Carey doing a cover of something. So I think that's what these films are about. These films are really political, sociological statements of the zeitgeist of that time. And as a result, I think they ring true to this day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, because like the 70s, I mean, we do talk a lot about the 70s in particular. Like the 70s American cinema is this like
one of the greatest periods
just
of
incredible.
Yeah, I'm not nostalgic, but
yeah, like it's that's the thing. It's like it's not like the good old days. Like these things, waves of this come and go for every country on earth. And it's like America hit its stride filmically in the 70s, like it's arguable that like England hit its in like the 60s, just a little bit beforehand, and like Australia in the mid 70s, that kind of thing. But like America has had a couple of good rounds of great filmmaking, but the 70s is like, it's like when you talk about Apocalypse Now, it's such an impossible achievement to imagine now. Like I don't know how we ever get back around to that. Like it's the end of the 70s. It's the end of the letting all these artists do whatever the hell they want, give them all the money they need, and you end up with this like tremendous explosion of art that's a popular event, and then after that you never ever see it again. Like it's just gone.
It was a real coming together at us. It was a perfect storm in the sense that the old white men that were running the movie studios in the 50s and 60s, with the cultural revolution that happened in the late 60s, early 70s, their audiences changed. And once their audiences changed, they didn't have a clue. They were like, what the hell do we do? Because I don't understand it. And with films like, Easy Rider and stuff, where it had such great success culturally, they didn't understand it at all. So they still wanted to make Doris Day movies, singing.
Right,
that's
exactly.
what they wanted to do.
Pillow talk.
And then, I'll drop a little names here. I had one of my favorite directors who I've spent a bit of time with is Marty Scorsese. And Scorsese said that a lot of it had to do with the advent of handheld 16 millimeter cameras.
Interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? And that once you were able to get away from these giant Mitchell 35s with laurel heads and the way in which they shot films, now filmmaking fell into the laps of avant-garde filmmakers. And at the same time, the studios were going, well, these avant-garde filmmakers seem to be selling stuff, sort of like what the record companies were doing. They didn't get it either, And so they just allowed it and it was the undercurrent of capitalism that allowed it to happen, because movie people were like, we don't know what the fuck we're doing. So these guys are selling tickets. All we want to do is make money.
Right. We just want to make the money.
Yeah. Here you go.
You do it, kid.
Yeah,
Just
exactly.
be done on time.
Yeah.
And that was basically it. The other thing I noticed watching it a bunch of times again this week, and for somebody who's been in visual effects, we've all been in visual effects, like how real everything was.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Like just the explosions and just the plane in the tree. It's like, oh, that's not CG. It's just a plane in a tree.
They literally put a plane in a tree.
I felt like I was in, Pirates of the Caribbean. Like, oh my God, that's real. That's like a real plane sticking out of the ground. And it was just beautiful to see real.
Their smoke budget was crazy.
Yeah, they burned a lot of tires on that show.
The
man.
pyro budget must have been out of this world.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the budget I read was $33 million to make that film, which in 1979 was a lot of
What is it in net present value for today?
I don't know.
I think it's like a $1.90. I think it's way the hell up there. It was just unprecedented, absolutely unprecedented. And like
$33 million to
yeah, so like and the thing is, I mean, like they were caught in they like the studios with Apocalypse Now, they were caught with sort of a it's like what's the gambler's fallacy, like where they're just like, well, we've already spent so much money. What the only way we can patch the hole is with more money.
That's called the Heaven's Gate theory.
Yeah, the Heaven's Gate theory, right? And then so it's all like he's out there in the Philippines, and he's just like, I need more money and 8 more months, and they're like, I guess so. Take it away, man.
It wasn't 18 months. The whole shoot was 18 months.
Yeah.
There was a heart attack in the middle of it.
Yeah, there was.
That's right.
And they changed the lead role too. Wasn't the lead role supposed to be like Harvey Keitel? Right.
That's right. Yeah, that's like if anyone's seen the documentary, the awesome documentary called Hearts of Darkness. Like with the moment when Sheen's had his heart attack, and you have Coppola's on the phone with the studio guys, and he's saying like, Marty's not dead until I say he's dead.
The best out of all that, there was some photo of him with a gun to his head. I was like, oh my God, that's pretty much says everything about him during that time.
No, it's everything. I mean, this is one of my favorite movies of all time, but that movie it's everything. It's everything all at once for the 70s. Like, it's not even like it's a political movie in that it's about Vietnam, obviously, but it's not even political in terms of like making a one side or the other statement. Is just showing you raw insanity all the time.
But the one great political statement, at least on the recut that I always remember, and I reminded this week, is when the Frenchman said, "You do all this for nothing." Right. Like you're chasing after nothing. Right. And the depressing thing is that we've repeated that with Iraq and all this stuff.
Course,
it's like it's like our stupidity just repeats itself.
Well, we never learn from our history.
It's stupidity informed by profit, right?
Yeah.
It's
Still.
it's like the only war worth fighting that that I can think of was the Second World War.
Right.
Yes.
Not even the Civil War. Personally, I think Lincoln should have said, you know what, you can keep the frickin' South. Just let us take all the black folks. We'll give them jobs, and we'll have them come to the city. We'll give them housing. Keep your damn South.
And then your economy can collapse, and then you can come back to us later.
I don't even know if we want them back. Let them collapse,
Yeah, exactly.
That's a good point.
Yeah, but no, like Vietnam is, because like, with World War II, like it's, like my father was in World War II, and his whole point of view on World War II is like that's the kind of war that you need. Like if it's gone this far, you have to do this. There's no way around it at a certain point, right? And that, like, the only way to avoid it was to avoid it way earlier, when it was obvious that something like this was going to happen. And that's when we tried to not do anything about it then, and that's why it built up into a mess. But with like Vietnam, you have, like, that's just like the French are occupying, because we were helping the Vietnamese. Like we supported the Vietnamese,
through military advisors, through Kennedy.
We're trying to support them for a while, and it's only the French that we eventually had to side with the French, and then we just get stuck in there while the French leave.
Well, I blame Oswald on that one.
Well, wait a second.
Nonsense.
Have you guys seen The Fog of War?
Yes.
Oh yeah, Errol Morris. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Right. So Errol gets McNamara, who was at the time Secretary of Defense, to basically say he lied about the Gulf of Tonkin to be able to get us
straight up scam.
War. Straight up scam. By the way, as was Pearl Harbor, in my opinion.
Yep.
But it was done for the right reasons. Roosevelt knew that the Japanese were going to attack Pearl Harbor. Come on.
It's certainly it's not unreasonable to think that may happen.
That
and he let it happen in order to have
a reason to get in.
Yeah, they're like, we have a whole bunch of ships at Pearl.
The Americans didn't want to get in. And they didn't want to get in because it was a result of the First World War. Right. Over there. Americans were saying, why were we having our young men killed fighting, in France somewhere and being gassed? Because it doesn't affect our life whatsoever. Right. So when the Second World War came around, Congress and the American populace were just not saying, I'm going to get into war. He needed an extenuating circumstance.
Right. And then Hitler declared war on us.
That's true.
Yeah, right off of that.
That's right.
Which was stupid.
I told you guys the story about my great grandfather in England, right? So my great grandfather was General Wade Hampton Hayes, and he was part of he was in England, sort of having the American Home Guard in England, and he was at odds with Ambassador Kennedy, who did not want to go into war.
Right.
Yeah. And basically, he says we need to help our allies short of nothing. Everyone's like, we need to help our allies short of war. He's like, no, and so he actually apparently had a big yelling match with Kennedy, and eventually we ended up going to war. So he was kind of a big part of that initial movement from the military to get into to beat the Nazis.
Yeah, like that's the thing, right? It's like there's no moral reason to be in Vietnam.
No.
At all.
No.
I had friends who came back and said that if we were at least fighting for good weed, I might have been.
That's something, right? That's something.
There's a reason.
Right. No, because it's like there's Ken Burns did a great documentary on Vietnam that I like quite a bit, and it really fills in all the weird, subtle traps we fell into. But by the time, like with McNamara and Fog of War, and because I actually saw Fog of War at Harvard. With Morris presenting it, and afterwards he fielded questions, and this one guy in the audience was so pissed off. He was just like, "You've humanized McNamara, you made him into a person, right?" And Errol Morris goes, "Don't get me wrong, I hate the guy. Right. Like I hold him responsible for all of this stuff.
Right.
But the whole point of making the movie is that when you think of people like this as a cartoon instead of as a person." Then you're always going to be blindsided by people like this.
That's right.
You
got to be able to identify them beforehand.
Did you guys know that Errol Morris did a bunch of work at DD?
I had heard that. Yes, that's right. Yeah.
What?
he was doing like some commercial documentary footage, and I forget what company it was for, but it was in the commercials group. And he hung out, and we got to talk to him and whatnot. We hung out for like about a week.
Have you met Roy Orbison? I'm always envious.
I know, I did.
It bothers me till to this day that you get to do that. Chuck Berry.
But how about that Roy Orbison line? That is just.
I used to knock on the door in your office and like chitter chatter. Uh-huh. I know the people that worked with you would be like, "Why are you walking in his office?" I'm just going to ask him.
Music, shut up.
I know. I was like, checking guitars and stuff. Yeah. But Roy Orbison, I can't tell you how much I love. And the fact that you met him, it's like, ugh.
Yeah. You also had when I was there, you had that Norman Seeff exhibit that you put up.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
I have the book.
Norman's latest book, or the
one from that time period. Yeah.
Now the best story of all, my best story being really, I've met a bunch of directors and a bunch of actors, and Robert Wise is the only director that really impressed me because Marty Scorsese, but. I'm mostly impressed by musicians. And the highlight of my life was when I was a junior in high school, I actually got to record in the recording studio with Jimi Hendrix.
Oh, my God.
6th Street and 8th?
It was at the record plant.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I was on 44th Street. Before Electric Ladyland.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, I used to live on 10th and 7th. And so I used to always go into NYU and stuff past Electric Ladyland.
Oh, dude.
You got to meet Jimmy then.
I got to hang out with Jimmy for a day, and he asked me to record a track with him. He gave me a cowbell, threw me out in the studio, and I played cowbell to Stone Free.
Oh my God!
Wow.
Yeah,
that would be my go-to cocktail party
guy
story.
Marshall producing. Who was the guy?
It was Gary Kellgren and Eddie.
Yes.
Eddie Kramer.
Kramer. That's right. Holy moly!
I would say I would find a way to.
We're getting some good reactions in chat.
Like
about
Jimi Hendrix gave me a cowbell is like that's one of the great things you could possibly say in your life.
Amazing.
Yeah,
I hope Casey's listening. Casey Ban, if you're out there, I work with him. He's an old DD guy too.
Oh yeah, Casey's great.
Yeah.
I
got him on. Hello, Casey. I got him to listen today.
Nice.
I can't.
That is Casey.
That is Casey.
So good to see you in chat.
Hey, Casey.
Awesome. Thanks for coming.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any questions for Scott? Just make sure.
Put them in the chat. We'll
put them in a chat.
We'll put it on through.
All right.
Which guitar are you going to give Eric? Let's get from everybody.
He wants the 56th gold top.
Let's do that.
That's what we're trying to work out. Hey, it's our 100th episode, ladies and gentlemen. We work out a good gift. It's fine.
We actually have some.
You get that at Norman's?
Say what?
You get that at Norman's Rare Guitars?
I don't remember where I got it. I think I bought it from somebody. Yeah.
Nice.
See, what I decided, I'm not really a good guitar player. I'm a much better saxophone player. And so when I was a kid and played in bands, they were like guitars that 15-year-old boys lust after. And so I got them all except for an SG Standard, which is the only one that I don't have that I used to lust after. Some guys used to put up like posters of, Brooke Shields or Farrah Fawcett on their wall. I had posters of like Gibson guitars.
I had Pete Townsend.
I had Robert Wise.
Paul Weller of the Jam.
I had Robert Wise posters. So that's kind of the same thing. It's it.
Fritz Lang posters.
Farrah Fawcett, Fritz
like
Lang.
Fritz Lang in a bathing suit. Like Farrah Fawcett.
That's perfect, dude. That's perfect. I love this. Anyway, I would just like to say thanks to everybody in chat for coming, because this is our 100th episode. We're very proud to have Scott Ross here with us today. And we are talking about Apocalypse Now, if no one caught on to that.
Sort of. Well, yeah, this is the flow of the conversation. This is why I thought you would be perfect for this, because you get it.
There's a little bit of ADD going on, but it's
this is just sort of like the radio. You have to do a radio station identification. You have to do that with what we're actually supposed to be talking about is Apocalypse Now. That's the thing. You can tell from the background of Chris's picture. It's something to do with helicopters. So it's either Apocalypse Now or it's John Carpenter. That's what we know.
So a couple of things we do, Scott. One of the mottos of our podcast is actually movies you never got around to watching, and now you don't have to. So we basically kind of tell you the plot of what's going on in a very loose way. So we can do that. And then we obviously interrupt each other constantly with facts and figures or anything that happens along the way. So Apocalypse Now. So first of all, the story of making Apocalypse Now is almost more important than the actual story itself.
It's also Apocalypse Now.
Right. Yeah.
Truly.
Yeah. So I want to note that this was, we threw out a couple of ideas of podcasts I wanted to do with you. We actually thought about doing Blade Runner with you, and he said, I'm going to talk about my favorite movies, and you gave us several of them. You gave Apocalypse Now, you gave Lawrence of Arabia, and a couple of other ones. And I think
Paradiso.
Cinema Paradiso.
That's one of my favorite movies. Are you serious?
Yeah,
good movie.
Oh my God. Then I got it. Okay. I'm going to send you something after this. That's okay.
Where do you live, Eric?
Right now, we left LA 2 years ago. My daughter goes to high school with her cousins here in Florida. So I moved to Florida during the pandemic, and my daughter is in high school with her cousins and happy. We were living in K-Town, and during the pandemic, we're like, you know what? Let's do the right thing. And
the Galby is not worth it.
Yeah.
What is?
The Galby is not worth it to live in K-Town.
No,
It's true.
but the thing is, what I was going to ask you is, do you remember where you were when you first saw this film? Were you in New York, LA, San Fran? Were you excited to see it, or you're just like, oh, I'm going to check this out?
No, I was
heard
excited.
about it. You heard that this was going on.
I was a big political animal then, as I am now, maybe more so then. At the time, I was just a little left of Che Guevara. And so anytime there, and I was of draft age. I could have gone easily, right? So any movie having to do with Vietnam, Full Metal Jacket, etc., I would go see. I'm trying to remember where I was. I was probably living the release year is 1979.
79, yeah.
So in 1979, I am living in the Bay Area, probably in Palo Alto. So I probably saw it at one of the Palo Alto theaters.
Okay.
You know what I realized on this week's reviewing it many, many times was that Mickey Hart and Bill Kreutzmann played on it.
Sure.
I didn't know that. I didn't know part of the Dead played on that. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's wild, dude. Yeah,
Francis is a Bay Area guy, and
that's right.
Very much involved in the counterculture. And there's Carmine, and he puts his relatives in the film. So this is an Abu Danza Italian dude, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And his attitude is familia. So he's hanging out with all of those people and inviting them in.
And he was also sort of the mentor to George Lucas, obviously, and during the Zoetrope.
Right. I mean, this was also
Conversation.
This was actually conversation. Oh. Yeah, exactly. I mean, and Lucas was involved with Apocalypse Now early on when
he almost was supposed to direct it at one point, wasn't he?
Because John Milius wrote the original draft of the screenplay.
Well, I have a John Milius story. God,
how can you? If you know exactly, go for it, man.
So many of you might know that I have. And still finally got back from he who cannot be named, who bankrupted Digital Domain. I finally got back my screenplay that I had developed over 15 years called 1,000
got it back.
Dreams. Yeah, I finally got it back.
Right.
And, while I was at DD, I was really actively looking to get this put into production. And so Milius had heard about the screenplay. And the screenplay, for those of you who don't know, is a fictionalized version of a couple that fall in love, an ex-Russian who gets out of Russia as a little boy when the czarists get killed, and he escapes to the United States, becomes an American, and is a member of the OSS, which is the precursor to the CIA in France, and ultimately gets to be part of the Russian delegation, which is true, to go to Japan to try to end the Second World War, and falls in love with his interpreter, who is a 19-year-old Japanese girl, and it's about the dropping of the bomb on Hiroshima, and it's a giant anti-nuke movie. Mm-hmm. So Milius hears about it, and of course I'm going to take the meeting with Milius, and I drive to the Paramount lot, and he's redone his office and he's hung pictures of mutually assured destruction and generals and photographs of atomic
Right.
explosions.
Right. Yeah. That's Milius. Yeah.
And he sits down and he says, I want to direct this sucker. And I said, okay, John, but talk to me about, what's going on in the office. He said, I did it particularly for you because I really want to direct this movie, and I said, you do realize this is an anti-nuke movie? He said, no, it's not. It's a movie about mutually assured destruction. It's the reason why there's peace on this planet. Peace is on this planet is because we've got to build bigger nuclear bombs. That's like,
right. Sounds great, John. Oh man,
how my people call your people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like
what?
Millions, Millions is that's good. It's a great documentary.
He's become much more sort of right wing, hasn't he?
Oh, he actually passed away.
Pretty right wing at that meeting too.
He was always right wing.
That's crazy.
But this is sort of what makes Apocalypse Now so fantastic is that you have left wing Coppola directing right wing Milius' screenplay.
Right.
So it's like the tension is all over. It's incredible. But there's a great documentary on Milius called Milius. And you can really see like this guy, he's one of these guys that he never went to war. He wanted to go to war because he wanted to prove himself a man, right? And so all of his movies are these amazing macho fantasies of what he wanted to be but couldn't.
So you're basically saying John Milius is gay.
Well, no, it's what makes him really fascinating, right? It's like because I think that he's an incredible screenwriter and like an amazing personality. I guess bigger than life, and there's an energy to him that was like positively creative out of the fact that he was internally a very desperate person.
Yeah.
Right. And so like I think that it's like I always say, like nobody makes action movies like Republicans because they live in this sort of like fantasy world.
Do you think
this is how it works?
So the Duvall character is pretty much him?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that's right on mine. Yeah. Like it's his fantasy. That's absolutely is when he's just like, I just want this war to be going on all the time.
It's funny you say that because they say in the movie he's the only guy who's going to remain unscratched.
Yeah,
like he's just hanging out. Bombs are going off. He's just so oblivious to it.
Jason saying he's
things going off around him. No fear.
Boom, boom. It doesn't matter.
Jason saying he's like John Goodman in Big Lebowski.
Yeah, exactly. Walter.
I didn't know that
about Brando.
Oh, dude.
Because I find him the most fascinating character in the film, obviously.
Brando?
What is your read on what Brando means in this movie? Because Brando himself as an actor is part of what makes this casting so great. His history makes it great.
He's only in it for 11 minutes.
Yeah, but he makes an impact.
Well, I think he represents the insanity of it all.
Right.
The ultimate insanity of war and what people will do when they're pushed so far that they can't tell right from wrong and have no sense of moral center.
Right.
I think you're right. I also see it as that there's a certain narrative, and he went against the narrative, and he becomes this criminal to the eyes of the military and stuff. Like he just stepped out of bounds. Don't think that way, but then he believes in it. And yes,
he believes in it exactly because like this is on my last rewatch. This thought occurred to me that I was like, I think what's weird about this movie is that within the moral framework of the film, right, Kurtz is correct. Like he's the only one with integrity in the entire film. He has gone to do exactly what they ordered him to do in its purest form. Like he's just like, well, you want me to do this? I'm going to go and do this. And I'm going to do it exactly the way it needs to be done with no baloney. And it's so horrifying and so terrible that the people that ordered him to do it need to kill him.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're embarrassed. They're embarrassed for themselves. They're like, well, no, that's what I'm saying. It's like he's
holding up a mirror to them, isn't he?
He's cutting to the chase. He's just like, this is what you guys intend to do here. Like this is like, if we strip away all your baloney and all your lies and all your, fake out, false attacks and false flag nonsense, what you want to do here is murder everybody and take control. That's the truth. But you don't want to say that because it looks bad.
Because
Like,
it won't be accepted by the public.
Exactly. Like, you're doing it. You told me to go do it, and I'm doing it. And now you're embarrassed. And it's all summed up in that great line with Sheen in the beginning when he's like, trying to put someone up for murder in this place is like handing out speeding tickets at the Indy 500. Like, what are you talking about? Like, this is the core of the madness of the movie, is that war is murder. Like, it's absolutely wild, moral-free murder. And you try to pretend like it's not, so you can remain human. But when you do that, you go insane. And it's a beautiful way to put it. It's horrifying. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, especially when they stop the people in the boat.
Oh my God! It's the horrifying. It's the most disturbing scenes.
Is that the scene with Lawrence Fishburne when he loses his shit?
Yeah. It's
First of all, let's talk about Lawrence Fishburne, who was actually 14 when this was made.
Exactly. Which is iconic for the movie.
Incredible life.
It's like this poor kid. It's like he's living the apocalypse. Like, he's living Vietnam for the movie, because you have kids in Vietnam that were like 17, whatever it is, And Lawrence Fishburne ends up on this, and then in the making of, he's like, oh, I'm really excited to be on this movie, man, because like, out here you can do whatever you want. That's why, and he says that's why people must have had so much fun going to Vietnam. And I was like,
cut to the end of shooting.
Exactly, dude. Exactly. Lawrence Fishburne, insane.
So, everybody knows that Brando didn't ever rehearse his lines and didn't.
Yeah, it's all improv.
Well, at this point, it was not an earpiece, right? What he was doing is he had cue cards that whoever he was speaking to, let's say Sheen would hold up the cue card and he would speak to Sheen and he would just read his lines.
No, man. What
I was listening to Coppola saying that one of those pauses that we all know him for, like Brando's pause, and it's because he was trying to remember his line in the 50s. And everyone said he always had this kind of casual realness, but it was actually, he was trying to just remember his lines because he didn't have a great memory.
Isn't that that's a Spencer Tracy thing, right? He would he'd look down at the floor to consider something, and then actually the cue card was on the floor.
Towards the end, he really did remember lines. I mean, people were like hanging from trees with holding cue cards and everything.
Who, Brando?
Brando, yeah.
Well, and they were just
I love Scott. Remember when Shane Mahan was telling was telling this story about the
Island of Dr. Moreau.
Yeah, it was
crazy.
My God,
I can only imagine.
I had Shane and Kevin Mack on stage.
Oh, I love Kevin.
And Kevin was the visual effects supervisor on Island of Dr. Moreau. And Shane was the creature, supervisor on Dr. Moreau.
He did all the masks and the makeup, yeah.
But Shane has the Brando impersonation to a T. Right?
It was so funny.
It was the funniest thing I've ever. I peed my pants. It was.
I did too. It was so funny. He was talking about how he made his own makeup. Like, basically, he was supposed to go in and give Brando the makeup for Island Dr. Moreau, and Brando made his own. He just put white shit on his face.
Brando said he took rubber gloves and filled them with talcum powder and put them on his hands so his hands were long. And he said to Shane, so what do you think? And Shane said, great.
Right. And then he had this fruit basket in front of him. He's like, huh. And he took the fruit and he just dumped it out and put it on his head. And he goes, that's my hat now.
Yeah, I'm going to wear a bucket. What do you guys think? All right. But it's sort of perfect that that's what happens to Coppola when he's trying to make a plot. Like, he doesn't know what the ending is.
Right.
Like, he's been working on this. Like, he's already like millions and millions of dollars into this thing, and he's like, at very least, when Brando shows up, I have one of the great actors of all time, and he's gonna be the anchor for the picture. And then Brando shows up, and he's like 60 pounds overweight. And he's just like, oh, I don't know my lines, and then he tries to make out like he tries to leave with like $1 million, and they pull him back. And just like it, without that kind of challenge for Coppola, I wonder if this movie would be as great as it is, because nothing makes you think harder. And I think we all know this from working at VFX. It's like when you think something's going to go great, and then it fucks up, you have to really you have to do it now, man.
plus, look at the environment that he's in. It's like one thing if you think it's really going to go great and it fucks up, and you're sitting in an Aeron chair at a visual effects studio. He's in like the Philippines, covered with mosquitoes and outrageous heat and humidity. It's disgusting.
Right.
Yeah,
I think there was who was it wasn't De Niro, it was Pacino who was was given the lead role as well. And he says, I'm not doing that. I know what this is going to be like. It's going to be you in a helicopter and me down in the shit for 5 months. I'm not doing this movie.
No way am I going to do that. Exactly. Yeah.
Well, I was listening to an interview with Coppola, and he was saying that that the big concern for him was his weight because he was embarrassed about it. And
Coppola?
so there,
Coppola's weight.
Brando's
weight.
And
right,
so they spent 4 days, shooting days, not going to set, but just sitting in his air-conditioned trailer, coming up with ideas of how to light him or deal with him because he didn't want to show his full body.
To minimize what
Who
was
was
so they put it
on that movie?
Storaro.
Vittorio Storaro.
I mean, it's brilliant. It's just
But
brilliant.
they planned it because he was very ashamed of it. So he said, just show. And the thing by the fourth day, and Coppola was saying that he financed this by putting up his vineyard in his home in Napa as collateral. So he had like, if this movie went south, he lost everything.
$7 million.
So every day he's sitting with Brando in his trailer, and they're like, "Hey, we're going to take a lunch." The crew is just waiting for him to come out. They spent 4 or 5 days talking about Heart of Darkness. On the 5th day, he's like, "So did you read Heart of Darkness?" He's like, "No, I never read it.
Yeah,
and then he showed up on set the next day with
Coppola read it to him. Coppola read the book to him, just like a little boy reading a story.
He had his whole life was tied up in this movie, and if it went south, so he was always stressed because. But the interesting, he was very ashamed of his weight. And that's where they came up with that creative idea, which actually worked.
This is it, because like when your back's against the wall, you're going to come up with the best idea, you know. And
by the way, that's a Francis move almost all the time to talk about entrepreneurial filmmaking, throwing everything at it that's yours.
Exactly.
I mean, he's doing it again with Metropolis.
Right.
You know, he's funded something like $100 million of the movie of his own money.
Yep, leverages his empire against it.
Yeah. Finally.
It's because he's wanted to do this for
forever.
30, 40 years now, something like this. Ridiculous.
Yeah.
And like he's like now that he's gotten all the, like, he finally put away enough dough to make this thing. It's Megalopolis. I can't remember. Like it's like
Casey's asking is it a remake of Fritz Lang's Metropolis, or
that's what I'm confusing.
Yes.
Maybe okay, so maybe it's that. Yeah, there it is. Okay, so like, but like when he because I know someone associated with this, and like you're exactly right. He's just like, I'm just willing. You have to be willing to put. You have to be willing to come out broke and living on the street. Like that's
what's his name? Miller, who
just
just came out with a movie that he did out of nowhere
of his own money. Yeah, I want to see the
Tim Miller.
No, not Tim Miller. The Frank Miller, the Australian guy.
Yeah.
Mad Max guy. What's his name?
Mad Max guy. Right.
Yeah.
Frank.
Is it Frank Miller? Why am I making it?
George Miller.
Henry Miller.
Yeah. but Henry Miller. It's Nexus and Plexus.
And it's going to be great. It's a trilogy.
It's so great.
It's George Miller. It's George Miller. George Miller. Yeah.
But yeah, exactly. Like he's just like,
Jason.
you have to be willing to put up as much as you want to care about the art. You need to put in as much as you care about, and which is everything. Right. Like that's how it's got to work. And but like the thing is with Coppola, you can see like now he does a couple of pretty good movies after 1979, but for at least a decade, he's creatively destroyed.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely destroyed. You know, there's no energy left after that thing.
Also, he lost his son, I think, in 87.
That's right. I believe
he did.
So.
Roman gets killed by is it Roman?
Yes.
He gets killed in a boating accident.
Right.
And you know who was driving the boat was the son of Ryan O'Neal.
Oh, geez, really? Oh, man.
Yeah, he was decapitated.
That's awful. That's
yeah.
awful. But yeah, I mean, like, I think that's the, like, trying to come back from that kind
Roman's in the movie, too, in the French scene.
Is he?
Oh, really?
I think so. Yeah, I think he is. He's one of the kids at the table.
Right. That's a beautiful sequence. I wish it weren't in the new cut.
I wish it was in the original.
It really helps.
Right.
It really helps
context,
with this. We were here, we're destroyed. And, you know, you're chasing after nothing, like the stupidity of it all. It really helps solidify all that. I also noticed in the redo, the opening was faster. Usually you're hold on those palm trees and the music, and you build this kind of. It immediately starts with an explosion. I'm like, they cut it faster. I don't know why they did that.
Well, that's the thing, is because I'm my favorite one is still the original cut, but like there's you can see watching the thought process through the other stuff is fascinating to me, especially the French plantation sequences, because like it really does this sort of, it's not just ghosts of the past coming to haunt you. It's essentially saying, this is who you're going to be.
It's the prophet.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mike is asking if you guys think that the Redux is better. Now, Eric, I didn't, honestly, I don't really have a particular opinion about it.
I didn't. I like the pacing of the original.
Both.
I like the French scene, but I like there's this visual pacing that they cut faster, because I watched them back to back, and I was like, they slowed that scene down. Like, come on.
One of the great openings of all films of all time, though.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it is.
Oh yeah, good God, it's impossible to beat that.
By the way, I was watching this again and again this week, and I was like, what if instead of Dennis Hopper, they used Diane Keaton, just like in Annie Hall? It's like, well, la-di-da, la-di-da. You've got to meet this guy anyway. And she's in like her pants and going around. It's like,
and everyone just starts dressing.
And he talks so eloquently and unbelievable. You got to meet him. La-di-da.
Well, I used to, I'll be honest, I used to hate.
And then Chris Walken could be the brother. I'm taking a pontoon boat, and sometimes I'm going to crash it.
Then I'm due back in America. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm due back. I'm back on my boat. Thanks.
But yeah, like I used to hate Hopper in this movie. Like I always thought he broke the tone of the movie. And now I'm like, this is the very point of casting Hopper. Like, oh my God. He is the
loose cannon casting.
Yeah, like he is, like if you didn't have him, then you're not ready for Brando. Like he has to come in as this completely scattered, shattered weirdo who can't handle the vision that Brando is going to provide you, and it's unnerving. That's why I didn't like him before. I was like, this upsets me more than almost anything else in the movie. Is when
he is supposed to be upsetting, right?
Yes, that's exactly. And so by the time we meet Brando, I'm like, oh my God, if someone if like this dude messes you up, like like Hopper's been messed up, like I don't want to meet Brando.
But the confidence and kind of craziness, the way he just said, I'm an American. There was something about that really resonated with me, because there's confidence. Just blow the horn, they'll go away. And I was like, that's so cocky, but that's had a touch.
Got it. That's what I mean.
American exceptionalism.
Yeah, I'm American. Don't worry. Give me your cigarettes. Just blow the horn, they'll go away. And it's like,
you missed the boat already, my friend.
As someone who's an American and who grew up abroad, I lived in Greece, and seeing American tourists in Greece was the most embarrassing thing. It was like they would say things like, "What's that in real money?" Like it was like, oh, I was like, oh,
okay, buddy.
But what if they took out the Doors music in the opening? It would have been totally different. I wonder if that was Walter Murch's choice.
It's a great
Coppola, because they went to school together.
Coppola and the Doors were at school together.
And Jim, they were all at USC together. Mm-hmm. And he wanted. I listened to a story. This is interesting. Can I talk, Chris? Is that okay?
Damn it. Let him. Jesus.
Chris told me I'm only allowed to talk for a certain amount of time. But I had read this story but I thought about this. Like, I did it back to back. I went crazy on this. But he basically walked into the editing room, and Murch was there and this other guy. And he said, what is all that stuff over there? And it was all that they ran 5 cameras on the explosion scene. Mm-hmm. And he's like, what is this? Like, that's this extra camera stuff. And he pulled it out.
For the explosion
and he said, wait a minute, let me try something. And then he grabbed a Doors song, and they did this slow opening with a Doors song. He said, wouldn't it be funny if you start the movie with the song The End? Yeah, and isn't that just, but there was an organic kind of process where they were just figuring out stuff there. It's pretty much how much, like we went to Vietnam. We just went in, took over, and we'll figure the narrative out and just figure it out. It was
there's something beautiful. There's something beautiful to this idea of just like having like you hard charge into the situation with all these artists. And then you see in the documentary, like he loses confidence in himself 2/3 of the way through. And he has put himself in the position of being the main character of his own movie. Like he's just like, he has traveled up the river with this entire film crew. And now what? I don't have an ending. I have nothing.
I always wondered about that. Like, I'm the kind of guy, I don't know if you are the same. I'm the kind of guy who, when I lay down in bed at night and I'm involved in a big project or there's big issues going on, I'm like going, holy shit, what am I going to do? This is how did I get here? I mean, why me? Why? And so I once asked Cameron, when we were in the middle of Titanic and everything was falling apart. If you remember, there was on the front page of the trades, there was a thing called Titanic Watch.
Yes,
right?
yes, I remember.
And so I said to Jim, do you ever really like sit up at night and question yourself and say, what the hell am I doing here? And the pressure get to you. What do you think his answer was?
No.
Is this the lawnmower story?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
His answer was no. It never gets to me because when I was a kid, I had this giant front lawn at my house and I had to mow it. And so if I ever thought about mowing the whole lawn, it would freak me out. So what I do is I mow one lane at a time.
Right.
And then when I'm finished with that lane, I turn around and I mow the other lane. And pretty soon, he said, I'm done mowing the lawn.
Yeah, you're there. That's right.
It's kind of like writing. You just got to sit down and do it. Because
you do it in pieces. I said, don't write the whole screenplay. Just write the opening.
yeah, exactly. Just in the moment of them. That's actually that's a great way to think about it. Because like because I think that people don't realize that when you see a great giant work of art like this is literally thousands of days worth of work.
Didn't he shoot 120 hours worth of stuff?
Yeah, it's just like ridiculous. And when you think of it, if you think about doing all of that, you think it's impossible because you can't imagine, because you're thinking about doing it today, and you're not doing it today. You're just doing this one little bit. Plus, there's literally 800 other people doing this with you. The
other thing that's amazing is that they didn't have a lab in the Philippines, so they had no dailies. No dailies. They shot the whole thing blind.
Right.
Didn't they that I heard, and I don't know, that they actually there was a lab in, was it in Japan or someplace, and they were sending footage overseas. I don't know.
I think they just took the whole thing with them back to the United States, and they saw it for the first time there.
See what happens.
After 18 months of shooting. Can you imagine just holding all of this undeveloped film?
Think about the pressure on Storaro.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. I think it's fine.
Yeah.
We checked the gate, right? We checked the gate, right?
Giant palm frond right in front the entire time.
The thing about that too is that he leveraged his house, vineyard, everything, and that's even more of a pressure every night for him.
Sure.
I mean, that's just like, that's rolling the dice like you wouldn't believe. It's a lot of pressure.
No, I can't say for sure, but I had heard there was some substance abuse as well in the movie.
Yes.
Well, that's because didn't Martin Sheen suffer from that?
I don't know.
Oh,
I think
Martin
why he
Sheen
got a
had an alcohol.
That's why he had his heart attack?
That's what I had heard.
Yeah, because I know on the Cotton Club, there was a snowstorm every day.
Sure. Yeah, I bet. I mean, because you can see, it's in the movie where Sheen
it's Robert Evans too,
bombed out of his
wasn't it?
mind during that one scene. Oh yeah, Robert Evans, good court. I mean, it's just like everyone in the 70s clearly, like, part of their courage as filmmakers was supplied from external forces.
When Martin Sheen was actually drunk when they filmed that, and they felt really horrible, like filming him being drunk. Completely drunk, and they're like, no, keep filming. He's like, this isn't right. And he actually broke that mirror. That mirror is a real glass.
And he actually bled.
That's real blood. That's just raw craziness.
But just the organizational aspect of that film, like the sets are so huge, and the extras and I mean, there's so much going on.
And they built all the sets, and they lost all of them in a monsoon, and then they had to rebuild them. Right. It's just like the commitment's insane.
The U.S. military wouldn't give them any of the military equipment because of, specifically this film is about going to assassinate.
Do you know who said no to that?
No.
Who?
The guy in charge, Donald Rumsfeld. He read the script and said no.
Really?
Yeah.
So now I hate him even more. Like, you almost stopped now.
Did you have a Rumsfeld poster on your wall?
In a bikini?
With darts in it.
What a great guy.
You know that Scott also, his license plate is Stop 45.
Yeah. This is.
I started thinking about that today as things are heating up, and they are heating up. And there's been a lot of discussion and conversation about what's going to happen if he's indicted and then possibly even
Right.
convicted. I'm thinking maybe I need to change my license plate. Now, I might be safe in Santa Barbara, but if I have to travel to like someplace outside of this little bubble, it could be pretty scary.
Well, here's
I
my
already
How about
people doing
orange
this.
jumpsuit?
Yeah.
How about orange jumpsuit?
Here's my suggestion is you can have faith in the people that support him at this point will not put the mental time into figuring out your license plate. They will just be like, I don't get it.
I don't know. I'm telling you, I've traveled. I drove up north. I drove through the Central Valley up north to visit some family. Right. And, there are people that pull up behind me really close and honk and then drive past me really fast and give me the finger. And,
really?
Yeah.
You're in Santa Barbara now.
Yeah.
And
I'm in Santa Barbara.
I think
he doesn't get in Santa Barbara. He gets it in the Central
he gets
Valley.
it outside the Central Valley, of course.
Yeah.
But like I heard a great documentary on Watergate and Nixon and the whole thing, and like the ending of the podcast was really is almost inspiring in that like the Republicans were like long past when it's obvious how bad Nixon is. Like the Republicans are still hanging on to like, no, it's misunderstood and this is all just blown out of proportion. And then at a certain point, it just all the support falls off.
The tape.
Yeah, it's just like there's right.
Yeah.
It's the tape, right? And
it's
hard
to. Though I think that if it was with Trump, they actually remember grab him by the what. Right. They had the tape and they still overcame it.
Right. Well, I think that even that is still like the core of what he says there is still the rejection of authority is still, and the sort of the offense that he's willing to give is still attractive to people. Whereas like I'm selling nuclear secrets to the Russians is that's kind of hard.
Now
to
what
defend.
they're saying is it's planted evidence that the FBI is deep state, and the evidence is planted because they're out to just get him.
That's so stupid.
Of course, they're saying that they have to. They have to come up with like what can we come up with? What can we come up with? They have to defend their narrative. Otherwise, they'll have to say they're like, oh, you know what? The last 4 years we've been lying to you.
Yeah, in terms of logical fallacies, this is called the gambler's problem because you've invested so much. It's like you've invested so much that you can't pull out.
You can't walk away from the table.
You can't walk away from the table.
Isn't that you're talking about the Vietnam War?
This is the same thing.
Well, it's the same thing.
You're committing yourself to something that you eventually know is ridiculous.
I always wondered that. There's like on paper, it just seemed like it's just a waste of time. And I wonder what the mentality was at that time.
Mentality by whom? I was there. So the mentality.
So like in the government, or I know everybody, the youth were against it, but like it doesn't seem to be going anywhere. Why would you keep investing in time and lives and money just to
I'll tell you. So there's several things. First of all, the youth, much of the youth was against it. There was a bunch of maggot people that were, my father died in the Second World War and you're a patriot. Sure. You need to be a patriot and you're a commie. And there was a lot of that. I remember going to, there was a cinema out by my university called the Uniondale Mini Cinema. And they would show these midnight shows. And they showed a midnight show of Patton. Yeah. And do you remember the scene when George C. Scott walks across the stage and there's this giant
flag?
Yeah. Well, all of us long hairs were like, boo, hiss. A fight broke out. They had to stop the movie and call the cops.
Oh my God. Jeez.
Wow.
That's how crazy it was. So why did they do it? They did it for the reason they always do it. There's money to be made. Yeah. Listen to Eisenhower's military-industrial complex rap.
Famous, yeah.
And it's famous, obviously. And it's all about, America's number one religion isn't Jesus, though they would like you to believe it is. It's money. And it's all about making money and throwing another kid on the fire to burn them. We don't care because it's our money.
The scenes that stick out is seen again this week over and over. It was like you talked about earlier, the boat scene with just the animals and the fruits, the basics of life.
Right. And
they just assassinated everybody on board.
Yeah.
And then what's his name? Dying at the end with the tape going of his mother. I was like.
Well, what's really heartbreaking about both of those scenes?
It's Fishburne's actual mother who was reading.
Oh, it's great.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That was.
What's really heartbreaking about both of those scenes is like when they're searching the boat, like nobody wants to be searching the boat. Nobody on the boat wants to be searched. The captain, chief, doesn't want to search the boat. It's just what he's supposed to do. Like, he's like, this is what we're supposed to do when we're on the river. We're going to do this thing. I have to do this. I'm told to do this. So nobody wants to do this, right? It all gets so heightened that it explodes and everyone is killed. And then you have Lawrence Fishburne, who's on the machine gun. Like, the first thing he does after he's killed everybody is he looks at it like, what the hell just happened?
I do.
Lifts his glasses up like,
yeah,
whoa.
he's like, what? Like as if he didn't do it himself.
Right.
You know? Right. And like, I think that's the real state of affairs for essentially everybody in the country right now, and for at that time is like we push ourselves to this sort of hectic state of emotion that we have to defend, like, the Republicans, et cetera, whatever. Like, they feel like it's like if they were to cut bait now, they're losing themselves, right? And so they just keep on. And I was corrected. McMonkey Man said it's the sunk cost fallacy, and it's just like when you were like, is so much identity is wrapped up in this that to stop it is to lose what you value. And when you said, Scott, like that, it's about money. Like, this is the most tragic thing about all of this is like the reason why the Republicans are doing what they're doing and supporting Trump is not because any of them like Trump. Like, it's because they know they
want to stay in power.
They want to stay in power.
Yeah. And it's like, and that's they say, oh, that's the new identity. That's the new,
right.
That's the new.
So they sell their constituents this bill of goods about America in a variant of it like that. Like we all want to believe in what America's about. Like, this is a project where we all care about each other and want to do well and do good in the world. Like, that's what the American dream should be, right? And they sell that to them in a form that applies only to them. And there's these other bad Americans. They're barely even Americans, called the liberals, and you have to fight against them. And once you start fighting, it never stops.
There's this wonderful cartoon. I don't know if you've seen it. It's a cartoon of three people sitting at a table with a pile of cookies. Have you guys seen this?
No.
So there's one that looks like Rupert Murdoch, right? And he's got a giant pile of cookies.
Right.
And then there's like your working class guy, and he's got like a half a cookie.
Right.
And then there's a poor black or brown immigrant, and he has no cookies. And the Rupert Murdoch character is saying, the reason you only have a half a cookie is because that guy stole your other half. and so it's the most amazing scam in the world. That they've convinced the working class people that it's their fault. It's not the guy with the gold toilet. And that's another thing about what happened in Vietnam is they convinced, and I have friends that went, they convinced these young men that they were doing the right thing by our country to go and fight in this war. And then when they get there, a lot of them have the Lawrence Fishburne reaction, which is, what the hell am I doing here? Killing these people for no reason whatsoever.
Right.
Yeah. It's like the guy's like, I just wanted to cook. Right. He sees the tire. I just wanted to be a cook.
Right. The line the line that I come up with all the time is a Max von Sydow line from Hannah and her sisters when he says, if Jesus came back and saw what people are doing in his name, he would never stop throwing up.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Exactly. But that's the truth. Like, Scott, when you said, it's just like the people that are doing these terrible things, or like they're espousing terrible views, like they think they're good guys who are defending America because it's been framed for them as if that's what's happening. Right. But once you realize once you do the Lawrence Fishburne look, like that's the come to Jesus moment when just like, wait a minute, what are we doing? Like, am I actually defending a dude who stole nuclear secrets? Like, that's when you should be like, okay, I'm out.
Well, they called into question all facets of any governmental oversight as being untruthful and not willing to do the right thing. So they're like, the big thing now that I've heard is defund the FBI.
Oh, right.
Oh my God!
Right. Yes. Right.
Yeah, and
right,
so
right.
now all of a sudden, like the Secret Service is the good guys because they deleted all the texts, right?
Right.
And the FBI and the Department of Justice are evil because
these people work for you. What are you doing? Yeah, I know.
and they were many of them were set up by Trump himself.
Yeah, no, it's wild. It's a really wild.
Trump's own judges told him he didn't win the election.
Yeah,
Just
I mean,
crazy.
so I think that there's, I have a question for you. It's a general question, but for Scott, do you think it's possible to make a movie about these times now that could be as great as Apocalypse Now, or are we too polarized to do that anymore?
I think we're too polarized. I also don't know where the money would come from. When we were talking about that zeitgeist of what was happening in the 70s, where studios were going, I don't know how to make any money. Mm-hmm. Studios now go, I know how to make money. You make stupid Marvel movies and you make them available to the entire world, and Chinese box office is really important to us. So we're not going to invest that kind of money, nor we're going to invest any money in the making of a movie like you're talking about. Now, that's not to say that an independent filmmaker wouldn't, the problem also now is to make something like Apocalypse Now today. I mean, what's that, $150 million movie, a $200 million movie?
Easily.
I mean, you might be able to do it on a streamer, and convince Apple TV to be able to do something like that. But
they tried to do that with Don't Look Up, right? I mean, that was the
Right.
But that's not really. But that's not Apocalypse Now.
No.
I was listening to an interview this week with Coppola, and he was saying that the original director, he was talking to George Lucas, and Lucas just wanted to do it with 16 millimeter.
He wanted to do it as a documentary. Yeah. They were documentary style.
Milius wanted to go to Vietnam while Vietnam was going on and shoot it there. He's like,
of course he did.
Of course, that's a great fantasy. That's nuts. Great fantasy. But he's just like, yeah, we would have been there in time for Tet. You're like, what are you talking about, man? Yeah, but yeah, I think that Lucas would
like Tropic Thunder, man.
Tropic Thunder, right? But Lucas would have at that time would have made a very interesting movie. He was when he was young, a really avant-garde, interesting character filmmaker. And I think he got trapped up in Star Wars and all that stuff, and even Star Wars remains very interesting, the stuff that he does. But man, you can just see when you're just why don't we give this to George Lucas? We'll shoot this on 16 millimeter and go to Vietnam. I mean, I can't imagine anyone saying that now about anything. It's a mindset that I don't know if we have.
It's like going to the Ukraine now. Would you go to the Ukraine?
To go shoot a film that, I mean, it's bizarre.
I think if you were 23, 24 years old and you had access to the technology that you have today, that I think there are people that would want to do that. I don't know if you'd get distribution.
Right.
Yeah.
That was the other key to
distribution though.
Now it was a major studio movie,
right?
So it had a ton of P&A behind it,
right?
And it was a perfect storm, right at the perfect moment.
And he was an Oscar, obviously respected.
Oh yeah, Godfather, etc. So he had two movies nominated for Best Picture in the same year with Conversation.
But that period too, it's you had New York by Scorsese. Mm-hmm. You had this. Everyone was and Close Encounters. Those are the movies I really love because they seem to be going. There's something totally different about every one of those. And I also love The King of Comedy. Those kind of movies in that period was really different. But
there's a doc out now. I don't know if any of you have seen it. It's called 1971, the year that music changed the world.
I've seen it. Mm-hmm.
Right?
Because I'm working on a show that starts in 71.
There you go. So at that point in time, all of the, as I said, Paris in the 1920s, all of the arts came, were following a path that was counterculture.
Right.
That's awesome.
This leads to a couple of things, because you said, you can't do that today, or people are just going to make Marvel films. Well, we were just talking about how they were just going to make Westerns and Doris Day films forever. Don't you think that at some point people are going to say, I'm tired of it?
What's Easy Rider today? What breaks it?
Yeah. What is the great film of 2022? What happened? I don't know what's.
Yeah. Is there anything that we've seen? Is there anything you've seen recently in the past 2 years that comes close to the kind of art they were making at that period? Is there anything that leaps to mind for anybody? there's a couple of good, I mean, there's a bunch of good movies. I've seen lots of good stuff. But I mean, like that comes close to the Easy Rider phenomena or the Bonnie and Clyde moment where everything just starts
I like
to
the
really
Safdie
turn.
brothers stuff. There's an edginess to it. I love it.
Right. Yeah, I was a big fan of Good Time and
Uncut Gems.
Uncut Gems.
Uncut Gems, I love.
Yeah,
I did not like Good Time.
Well, you didn't like the guy in Good Time. Like you don't like.
How about Get Out?
Oh yeah, Get Out. That's a great one. That's a great call.
Yeah.
That's a great call. Right.
Yeah, he's doing stuff that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Surprising. Like I did not expect that coming from him.
Yeah, no, he's a real talent, man. Like I would go so far as to say my favorite from him is actually Us in terms of just moment to moment filmmaking. Like that feels more like the kind of emotion that Hitchcock produced than almost anyone I can think of. Like I was just like this guy is a real powerful filmmaker.
I agree.
And I don't know if he's made his greatest film yet, but his skills are really unlike nobody else working today. Really, really something.
Hey, by the way, do we have any twitching?
Yeah, let's take a look.
Yeah, we do have some questions. We had one of the questions was specifically, what's your favorite film of 2022?
God.
So
it wasn't Elvis.
It was not.
But you know what's cool about the Elvis?
Yeah.
You know what's cool about? I watched it with my daughter the other night, and I love it's music geeky stuff, but I love Scotty Moore ever since like college, and I got the first Sun Sessions, Scotty Moore and guitar, and I'd be talking about Scotty Moore, and she's like, I really love those songs, like That's All Right, Mama, and stuff from Elvis. And the fact that my daughter likes that stuff from 54, 55 is crazy cool. You know, it says a lot about the music itself.
So. I'm really looking forward to Blonde, actually.
Oh, hugely! I love that director. Yeah,
that director is amazing.
Help me out. What is that about?
Blonde. It's the Marilyn Monroe film that's coming out.
It's directed by Andrew Dominic, who did Killing Them Softly and The Assassination of Jesse James. And,
is that the same?
So that movie, honestly, Scott, if you haven't seen The Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford, it is one of the greatest films that I was like, how did I miss this? It is.
I can't believe that nobody knows about this movie. Like,
I love that film.
Yeah, and the cinematography is what's his name, Roger Deakins, and it is just blew my mind. Like
I'll check it out.
Yeah, really. Good. But anyway, Blonde. He's doing Blonde, which is what's her name is the
Anna de Armas.
She's playing Marilyn Monroe, and apparently
I wish I had name recall like you young guys.
Young, I am 38. How old are you, Chris?
Just around in 40.
I was born the year rock and roll changed everything.
Yeah, right. I was 8 years old when Apocalypse Now came out, so I was too busy watching Alien.
Yeah,
the other great 1979 picture. But it's one of my questions. Is like with movies like that guy makes, right? For instance, Blonde has a lot of controversy around it now because it's a Netflix movie and it's rated NC-17. And there's a very strong wave of anger and flipping out on Twitter, on film Twitter, about whether this is appropriate or whether we should talk about Marilyn in these ways, or whether I'm just like, I just get frustrated and just like, isn't anybody curious anymore artistically in film? Like, do we just want the Marvel movies? Is that all we want to keep on experiencing? I get very frustrated.
Well, I don't know if it's what we want, but it's definitely what they want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? I mean, all you have to do is look at the box office numbers.
Yeah, it's still huge. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, would you say? I mean, like, but
the box office numbers are. Well, there's a chink in the armor. Like, it's starting to happen. They just dumped all of Batgirl.
Yeah,
they dumped it.
They're pulling the plug.
They're about to pull the Flash.
Yeah, what did you think of that, Scott? Like, that's so much money they just wrote off. That's crazy.
DNA. Yeah, it's a lot of money.
Well, they save a lot of money by not releasing it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So if it's a really dog film, first of all, the question is, how did it become such a dog film? And isn't there anybody overseeing it that's saying, oh my God, this is going to be a problem, right?
Right.
But that's a management issue. But, if you invest $150 million in the production of a film, you're going to invest another $150 million in prints and advertising.
Yeah.
And so, it's that same old thing. Stop throwing good money after bad money.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
So it must be horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, though, what's an interesting point is like there have been plenty of bad superhero movies that have come out, right? But up until now they've still had their audience and their defenders. So part of what they must have been analyzing is like, we can't expect this to make money even though it's bad. Like it, right. Like, and they've turned some sort of an internal corner where they're just like, okay, we probably like 5 years ago we probably would have been able to put this thing out and it still would have covered its cost, but now it's going to look so bad that it's going to hurt our ability to sell superhero content.
But they also probably thought it's going to kill the brand in some ways,
right? And
here's another question. It's like Star Wars did not do well in China because the brand is not really famous in China. So is Batman and Batgirl famous in China, like Marvel movies? And so you always have to look at it from a Chinese and a perspective, because now they're like, 52% of the global box office.
Right.
Wow.
52%.
Yeah. But their tastes are very Chinese. No surprise. Like they make their own movies.
Oh,
like they have their own. No, they make their own blockbusters. It's not.
They make Chinese Rambos.
They make Chinese Rambos too. Yeah, exactly. And that's
Chinese
actually,
Rambos.
Yeah, it's true.
Sounds like an indie band. Too.
Yeah, they're going through the same phase that we did. Like essentially, you're saying with Rambo is like in the 80s. Like you make movies that are these very sort of pro-America movies in the 1980s, and it's very invigorating. It makes you feel really good about your country and all this kind of stuff.
Right.
Didn't Milos write Red Dawn?
He directed Red Dawn. Also,
he directed.
He wrote Conan the Barbarian, and
he's really a crazy Republican.
He would not. Yeah, like he was a.
That's unbelievable.
The thing is, I don't want to I'm as far left of crazy crackpot liberal as there is. However,
have you met Scott?
Yeah, I think we have a lot of stuff. That's true. No. Like I'm off the deep end, but I still have interest in people like Milius, because Milius,
he's a genius.
He's an absolute genius.
Yeah, he's a genius.
And like it's hard to spot like how much of this was sort of a put on so he would get a bigger reaction out of people.
It could be that.
Well, remember, it's based on a book.
True.
So it's not like an original screenplay by John Milius. It's an adaptation of an already existing book that he has to somewhat follow the tact of the book, right?
Right. For
Speaking
sure.
of books, did you know that the commentary, the voiceover is Michael Herr? Do you know?
Yes.
You ever read the book Dispatches? I loved that book as a kid, or at least in the 80s, and it's about a war photographer, and he was the writer. He's the guy that narrated it.
Huh.
Because they didn't. Martin Sheen couldn't do it. I think it was after his heart attack or something. They did the narration afterwards, and they found someone who had the voice that was very, very similar.
No kidding.
Yeah,
wow.
That's Michael Herr. And if you read the book Dispatches, but the Clash even sang about Dispatches. That was like a big book in the early 80s. Charlie Don't Surf off of Sandinista. And I was like, I didn't realize that.
I'm shocked. I'm absolutely shocked. That's like, I thought there wasn't any more new facts.
Speaking of, just a little sidetrack here, ADD. I watched a doc while I worked out, because I work out, I watch YouTube, just like go rabbit holes. And I watched a doc about this operation that Rumsfeld started in 1966 in Vietnam, where they would drop these little canisters on the Ho Chi Minh Trail, and they had sensors, and they would feed back to computers.
I saw that.
It would tell if there was a scent of urine or particles of urine or sweat, so they can see the movement of the people.
In 1966, they were able to. How are they doing that?
Because they put TRW together with the U.S. military and spent $12 million a week and did that program from 66 to 71. I'll send you the link.
I want to see that.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that.
Scott, every week they would drop these things that look like little mortars that go off, but they had little parachutes, and they would fall at a rate where they would stick in the ground, but their parts would have sensors on it. And then they built this huge TRW facility in South Vietnam where they flew everything over, and it was heavily fortified, and would pick the sensors up, and it could figure out people and movement because the particles in the air were picking up stuff.
It was on the Ho Chi Minh Trail, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then they started realizing that, so they would hire kids to go and just urinate all on the trail in different parts. So then they had to adapt. But every week they would fly these planes and drop these canisters. It was 12 to 18 million a week from 66 to about 72.
In $1960.
That's right.
Right.
So think about the money Rumsfeld spent
Right.
just to smell urine.
Yeah, I think he continued that theme through the rest of his career. I think it's safe to say that.
I mean, that's a lot of money that could have helped our country, right? 12 to 18 million a week.
It's the story.
Every 3 weeks, you can make another apocalypse now.
Yeah, exactly.
Story of America.
Right.
So let's say 12 million a week. In today's dollars for 1967, that's got to be
I'll tell
like,
you what that is in a second.
that's like what, $62 million a week?
Yeah, like Rumsfeld, like the one great thing that Rumsfeld contributed to art for me is when he said, there are known unknowns. There are unknown unknowns. And he goes into this weird little poem about like, there's just stuff you can't know. There's stuff that you don't know you can't know. And I'm just like, once you hear him say it, you're like, this is his whole philosophy. It's like, I can hide behind anything at any given time. And that's why he gets away with everything throughout his entire career. It's just like, yeah, no, I just figured it out. It's fine.
So $7 million in 1967 is worth $62 million today.
So it's like $80 million a week. $80 million a week. Because he was $12 million a week. It was
Yeah, $12 million. I could get you that one. That's right. It's crazy.
That's Vietnam in a nutshell right there.
The dumbest. And it was 18 million at the height of the war.
That's wild.
I remember
$6.5 million.
This was, I remember, Eric.
Operation Igloo White. And we always have to name our shows operations. This is Jade Scorpion. This is Operation Igloo White.
And wasn't it the first example of using machine learning? Like they actually did some kind of an AI back then to make this work? Yeah. Yeah, it was one of the first examples of that. They didn't have a name for it like they do now, but it's basically the same thing. Yeah.
That's insane.
I'm putting it in chat for this ninja.
Beautiful. Oh my God.
It's and you can see the stuff. I mean, it's a lot of money doing this.
I think that Coppola should do a new cut that includes pee testing on the Ho Chi Minh Trail. I think that's the
not to mention the number of tigers that walk by unpeed on it too.
Peed on it as well. Yeah, you have a shot of a tiger, it pees on the ground, and then you cut to the CIA saying, "Sir, there's a troop surge on the line,"
and they look testosterone poisoned.
Exactly. Oh my God, dude. Yeah.
But I think basically what you said earlier about the joke about the cookie and the half-eaten cookie, it's just that everybody there was with no cookie. Their lives were destroyed, and it's really horrible when you see this.
But they're communists. They're communists.
We gotta stop the communists.
You gotta stop the communists.
I remember sitting in a conference room at Lucasfilm, and the war between Iraq and what's they invaded the country. Kuwait, yeah. So I had started, and I started freaking out. I said, "This is just like Vietnam. This is just like Vietnam." And the people that were in was sitting in the conference room with me was an Egyptian television station. They were trying to do something, and so they said, "No, you don't understand, sir. This is not like Vietnam." I said, "Come on, this is crazy." He said, "No, the difference is, in 15 years after the Vietnamese War, the Vietnamese will welcome Americans with open arms and love you and feed you hamburgers. The Kuwaitis and the Iraqis will hate you for generation after generation after generation."
Yeah. Yep. Yep. There you go.
I've not been to Vietnam, but I have friends that have now. And it's amazing.
Yeah, it's a beautiful country. There's a couple of episodes of
the Koreans don't like us too much. The North Koreans don't like us.
Yes. But yeah, no, I think that like the sort of the evil genius of Rumsfeld and his crew when it came to Iraq was they wanted to avoid the mistake of Vietnam, so by not having a draft, and so they're like, if we just take people that are in the National Guard and use that for half the force, and then we take people like from Blackwater to do all the
Right.
the really illegal shit.
Really?
Mercenaries.
And the mercenaries.
Mercenaries.
Then we're giving all the money to the mercenaries to do the terrible shit, and then all the people in the National Guard are like, they're the ones we get to treat badly and put in terrible situations and treat like cannon fodder, and nobody in America cares because they already.
Is that? Yeah. Okay.
Oh yeah, hit it. But that's the kind of thing where if you're to try to make a movie out of that now, there's a level of complexity to that kind of. How can I say it? Not
It's
evil,
corporate though,
but it's such a corporate kind of mechanism that you'd have to make something like The Insider in order to make a movie out of that. Like you can't make Apocalypse Now because that's not the American experience of that war anymore. Like the people are so distanced from the wars we get involved in.
But can you tell me any movie that is made that supports the Vietnamese War?
Oh yeah, it's like
every single movie about Vietnam is about how horrible Vietnam was.
Well, and specifically
horrible because they were duped, or horrible. I mean, I understand why it was horrible,
right?
But
like
I understand, like if we were duped so much as a country to go to such a stupid war as Vietnam, why wasn't everybody on the street during Kuwait or Iraq saying it's not again?
Because they don't like when you're dealing with Vietnam, like you're scared your kid will be swept up in this, right? You're not scared about that, generally speaking, if it's if
you don't have a stake in the game.
You don't have a stake.
Well,
in the game.
remember that Iraq War was Bush Senior, right?
Yeah. Right.
So and that's coming off of Reagan, right? So you still
no. Bush Senior was the head of the CIA.
I understand that,
Yes.
but
I'm talking. Reagan was an idiot.
Yeah, I understand the whole thing, but I'm saying that the people in general, they were huge. Like Reagan was great. America was still all pro Reagan at that time,
Absolutely.
Right? And so it was really hard to sort of flip that.
Well, the reason why people were pro Reagan is because it does two things. Either you are benefiting directly from him being a ripoff artist, right? And you're getting rich, or they're selling you a bill of goods by saying, well, you could be one of the rich ones, and so give us, do all the work for us. And that's why that attitude keeps on selling, and the new mechanism of war and how we wage it is to distance people enough so they get the benefits of what we are going to war over, i.e. oil, right? And then it's just a background TV element with no one we're really connected to. And whereas like when you said like, is there any pro-Vietnam War films? I'm like there's only one. It's John Wayne's, the Green Berets. And what I really want to say, and like, cause it's like they're all played as tragedies about Vietnam. I'm like, they're all played as tragedies about America's experience in Vietnam.
Well, there are no
Vietnamese tragedy stories.
Exactly. It's not a Vietnamese tragedy where we went in and killed millions of people. Like, it's sad that America had this problem called Vietnam.
Right. Yeah. Well, the people are saying the difference between Iraq and Vietnam is that for Vietnam there was a draft, and for Iraq there wasn't.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
That's an important piece. Not only that the government outlawed the filming of body bags coming back from Iraq. Yes. I remember
from Vietnam
18, 19,
Iraq.
20, watching the Walter Cronkite, and 415 Americans were killed today. Right. Meanwhile, they're bringing caskets on C-137s and 13,000 North Vietnamese regulars. I mean, every single night we saw it. Right. We didn't see any of the death in Iraq.
Yeah, we kept it all very quiet.
They banned that.
Yeah. And they banned it. And
same thing that's happening with Russia and Ukraine right now.
Of course. and they would only let journalists travel embedded. Right. So they're only saying, like, the journalists get to see this sort of theatrical version of the experience as opposed to the real version of the experience. And no one's really doing the journalism they need to be doing to report on any of it. It's like I watch All the President's Men maybe once a week. And it's one of the greatest things I've ever seen. And I'm just like, I don't think that this
how it could happen again.
I'm just like, this, like, where is this today? Like, where is this kind of dedication to actually revealing the truth? It blows my mind.
Americans are too fat and they're too polarized, and they have too many credit cards, and there's too much advertising, and people are worried about their sports teams. It's so removed. I mean, Ukraine has become like a fifth tier story now. We're not even really hearing about the atrocities that's happening in Ukraine.
Right.
We're hearing about Anne Heche crashing her car into a house.
That's
exactly.
right. She died, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, which is sad, right? But it's like
really sad.
Yeah, with Ukraine, we were worried as long as it was like, wait a minute, are we going to get into a nuclear war? Because then I'm going to really click on this.
No, we're getting upset about the fact that Blonde is going to be NC-17. Like, come on, guys, ridiculous.
But go ahead.
Do we have any other questions from the Twitch land?
Yeah, if you guys have any specific, there was a bunch that gone by, but if there's any other questions on chat, let us know. But I do have a question for you. What do you think about Victoria Alonso, since you were one of the people that sort of brought her up into the world, and that Marvelness that's going on now?
I don't know enough, right? I just know what I read, because I'm really, no longer associated with the visual effects world. I've been, right. I mean, my latest complaint is Jim Cameron has now started Digital Domain with Stan Winston, and he's left me out of the mix. I'm never mentioned by Cameron. And
what?
Yeah. I mean, Cameron did this whole interview sequence on the new Avatar movie, and it was everywhere. And he was asked about certain things. He said, well, yes, back in 1993, Stan Winston, my dear friend, and I started this company called Digital Domain. Never mentions me.
Oh, right? That's crazy.
No.
And then, the Light and Magic documentary that Larry Kasdan has done has just come out. And I'm not mentioned at all in it, which is interesting because, at the point in time when ILM transitioned from analog to digital, I mean, there were proponents like John Nolan, Dennis Murin, Scott Squires, and Mark DePay and Spaz. But it was me that sort of laughed in the face of Norby and the powers that be and said, fuck you, we're buying SGI machines. So, I played an important role in that, but I've been written out of that history as well. So for my sanity, I've sort of stayed away from the visual effects world. I have no reason to be in it. And so I've been reading a bunch about what Marvel is doing. Yeah. But it sounds like what Marvel is doing is what every studio with any power and any, large scale projects have done in immemorial, which is basically screw the visual effects company, beat them into submission, take their blood, their inner organs, and who cares? Because I'm going to make a movie, and they're gonna be excited because they're going to want to do it again. It's the old George Lucas line: "Give them enough pizza and beer, they'll do anything."
Yeah, right. Exactly. I mean, like,
have you seen the new Spaz documentary?
I have. I'm in it.
You're in it?
Yeah.
Oh, good. I haven't seen it yet. I've been trying. I actually would love to try to get. I've been messaging Spaz to try to get him back on the podcast and be in it.
Talk to Scott Lebrecht. He's the director, and he owns the property, and he's trying to work out distribution at this point.
Okay, so I'll get in touch with you if you can give me his information. That'd be great. But yeah, I've had this thing about, like, there was this rebel group, right? The big moments in filmmaking came from rebel groups, came from people like Spaz, right? Like when Spaz went under the radar and made this dinosaur that suddenly showed up in front of Kathleen Kennedy, right? They're like, "Hey, wait, what's that?" And I was like, "Oh," and it changed filmmaking. Filmmaking. Right. And I think that those are important moments.
Well, it's like the journey of CG from being like from Jurassic Park, where like it really, like you're saying, it utterly changed filmmaking. Like just like what, like how we even think about making movies. To right now, you get people complaining about CG like it ruins everything. And I'm like, the CG isn't the problem. It's the shitty movie. Like, that is what's going on. I
used to have my line was, "We don't write them, we don't direct them, we just do the visual effects."
Exactly. Good Lord. Like, yes, I've seen some terrible.
That's like saying I was just following orders, Scott.
Yeah.
I was just following orders.
This is the thing, man. It's like if people understood how much great work they see every single day from people that are, like, by and large getting screwed over these days. Like, absolutely photoreal, goes right by you, don't even notice. And then you see one bad sequence because the studio has mismanaged a shoot so poorly and they've changed everything down to the last minute, and it turns out to be a terribly comped gray mess. And they're like, see, I told you CG was lousy. You're just like,
so there was some rumor, actually, an article that came out today about there's a speculation that Marvel is going to try to buy a visual effects company and make their own visual effects.
Well, didn't Netflix do that?
Netflix did that.
That did that. They bought Scanline.
Right.
Maybe they'll start paying people in Marvel bucks.
So Animal Logic.
And they bought Animal Logic too. So here's my theory about Netflix. Netflix said, okay, they're trying to become Disney because Disney owns ILM and they own Pixar, right? So I feel that they bought Scanline, which is ILM at a bargain price, right? And then they bought Animal Logic, which is Pixar at a bargain price, right?
Yes.
So I have a feeling that that's what they're trying to do. Now, I don't know if Marvel buying their own visual effects company is interesting an idea. And someone else I was speculating, it's like they'll probably end up buying Digital Domain. Do you think that's true? Do you think that's a possibility, Scott?
Well, first of all, Marvel is very different than Netflix, right? So Netflix is a distributor of content, and Marvel is a developer and producer of content, right? Distributed through the Disney company. So the problem with Marvel, the analog of Marvel buying a visual effects company, is like other people that have tried to buy visual effects companies in the past, and they don't work out very well, right?
Right.
And so ultimately, Marvel will be saddled with all of this overhead, and it'll just be a mess, and then Marvel will exit. But I can understand that the thinking that Marvel thinks they should buy a visual effects company, right?
Because they're getting a lot of bad press recently. There's a lot of press about how people hate working on Marvel films.
Yeah, I've been reading it.
Yep. So
will they buy Digital Domain? Well, possibly. Digital Domain has maybe run its course as a money launderer for the Chinese, because that's really what it is.
Whoa.
No, I know that for a fact. It's a fact.
Who was the guy that we met in London, Scott? You and I, the Dutch guy, remember?
Oh yeah,
And he was the one.
Sanderman.
Yeah, he's the one who was like, wait a minute, something's wrong here. And he started realizing that it was money laundering.
Yeah, it's money laundering.
Right.
Yeah.
Man, well, I get because I think when I see people that don't know anything about visual effects talking about, should we say buy a visual effects company? Like, I think they don't realize that the reason why the visual effects a company makes are good is because of the people in that company. Like, you have these incredibly talented artists who have worked together as a team and know how to work together, and they bounce off each other perfectly. I mean, like everyone, when you were there, Scott, and I was working with folks you can name any number of folks.
Eric Sheely.
Just like Eric Sheely, obviously. But like these are people that aren't just geniuses in their own right, but they had worked together for a long time as a team. Then that was the magic of it. Like, they understood how to do this. And if you simply buy a visual effects company without keeping those teams, you're just buying computers expensively.
So my situation was even worse. So I wound up founding a visual effects company. So it was me. That was it. Right. So it was Jim's name, and there was Stan, who was at times sort of a weight. Right. And there was me, and that was it. And so we put together a visual effects company from scratch. There were no computers. There was no technology. There were no people. There was nothing. There was me and $15 million. Right. And so the first couple of years were really, really difficult because I had to pull in people from different areas. They hadn't worked as a team together. They had different nomenclature. It was really, really difficult.
Right.
But once we hit our stride, we hit our stride.
Right. Well, so you look at that today, and say like $15 million today, which to anyone who works in VFX, like $15 million is still $15 million bucks, right? Like, that's a lot of money. But the what you can pull off with a small team that with free materials of your own, right? Like, with programs you can buy your own, cameras, you can shoot movies on your phone now. Yeah. Like, it seems like in the next, within 5 years, virtually everybody who wants to be a filmmaker can make movies that look at least like low-end competitive and still have lots of VFX, and just do it with your 10 friends, right? And so when you brought up earlier, when 16 millimeter and 8 millimeter came around, it was a release for people because studios made movies with these giant refrigerator sized cameras, right? But once you get 16 millimeter, people are set free to make Easy Rider, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody that I know in America has a phone that can shoot a movie in their pocket.
Right.
Didn't Coppola talk about that in Hearts of Darkness?
Yes, because the famous thing is every you're
Girl
gonna get
from Ohio.
Yeah, so you're gonna get some girl from Ohio you can just go and make a movie, blah blah blah. And I'm like, so where are those folks? We all have.
So that's the same line that and I, again, because my memory is going at my age, is that the guy who headed up Adobe when PostScript came out. Right. So when I grew up, there were like John Warnock, I think his name was. Okay. So when I grew up, there were like 5 or 6 magazines. And then all of a sudden, when PostScript came out and laser printers and the ability there were, lesbian bikers from Ohio that only wore red leather shoes. It was incredible. Right. But, yes, there were some that rose to the top. But most of it was crap because it's not about the technology, as you well know. It's about creativity. Right. And so really creative people don't come around very often.
Yeah. Where do you expect to see creative people now? Do you expect to see them in film or in streaming, or what's the source that we look towards?
Well, I think film is dead. I think major motion pictures are basically gone by the wayside. And I think streaming is where it's all at, where people can take risks. I mean, David Fincher hasn't made a film in a while, but he's doing a lot of stuff in streaming, right? Yeah, so, I think the really creative folks are like, I don't want to have to answer to the suits at Paramount ever again. I just want to do it.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I think streaming is the way to go. And I think that will morph too, because you've seen what's happened at Netflix, where Netflix was, they had a whole bunch of money and they threw it at the wall and some of it stuck, but most of it didn't. Mm-hmm. So I think you'll have to get creative executives at streamers that did not come from the motion picture industry, because the transfer of that motion picture zeitgeist is poison, particularly in the streamer world.
Right.
Yeah, I always feel I've been trying to pitch something in the past couple of years. It's like kill the gatekeepers, because nobody gets anything. There was a kind of a glossy, like deer in the headlights, and there's no sense of, I don't know.
Got a couple questions on chat before they go away. I want to make sure we get them. So Jason is asking, Scott, what, if anything, was the most paradigm shifting for you about running a VFX company?
The most paradigm shifting. Well, the good stuff is winning an Academy Award. When I was in Industrial Light and Magic, every year I was there, we won the Oscar. Right. Every single year. Right. And so there's nothing like vengeance. Vengeance is an amazing and powerful tool. So when I started Digital Domain, one of my main driving forces of the fire in my belly was, fuck ILM, right? I'm going to show them. Right. And so, and by the way, a bunch of my friends at ILM said to me, you'll never make it happen. It's never going to happen. So winning the Academy Award, the first Academy Award, was like, neener. And in addition, I don't think ILM had won an Academy Award for years after I left. Right. So not only did my ego went, aha, when I was there, we won Academy Awards, and when I wasn't there, we didn't. I'm sure I had nothing to do with that, but in my delusional mind, I did. And then, when Digital Domain won its first Academy Award, that was the moment of...
Is it Apollo 13 was the first one?
We lost Apollo 13. We were nominated. I to this day, I still hate pigs.
Oh, Babe.
Yeah. It was Babe. Yeah, God bless Babe. But yeah.
To this day, I still, it's not my Jewish kosherness. It's my Apollo 13 ego. But it was Titanic, right?
Titanic, yeah.
But just on a note, Chris got me into DD, because if I straight interviewed there, they wouldn't have hired me. But Chris, on his recommendation, and I can't tell you how proud I was and how much I loved working at DD. I just was
same.
artists, and it was like, this is the greatest thing. I could talk to people about art and do things, and it was just great work. And Chris got me in. So
the greatest compliment I ever got was a DD employee said to me, "What you were able to do with DD, Scott, was you took a visual effects company and made it a rock and roll band."
Amen.
Yes, you did.
Amen.
You did.
Amen. Yeah, that's exactly true. That's exactly my experience.
Loved it.
Well,
So
because that's for me, because I initially started in commercials and DD, and like the way the commercials worked was so like run and gun and solve the problem immediately and all this kind of stuff. And then I went from that on to Zodiac, and Fincher had basically the same sort of style. Just like, I just want the shot done. Like we just have to figure out the shot. And the people that sort of came up in that with that mindset are all the ones that continue to do great work today.
Yeah,
and I meet a lot of people with a lot of experience that have the more, I don't want to pick on one particular company, but like the more corporate style of visual effects, and they don't have creative answers for how to do things. And whereas like you meet people that it's never a surprise when like an ex-DD guy, wins an Academy Award. Yeah, it's because we knew how to do it back then.
Well, Scott, was it this year, the Academy Award lineup this year? These are all your guys.
Everybody.
All your guys. Yeah.
Brian Grill, right?
Brian Grill.
Kelly Ford.
That's right. It's all under your wing.
Those are the guys who know how to do this stuff.
So here's the letter that I wrote to Jim, right? I had just seen the Avatar 2 promo that he was doing. Right. And I said, "Dear Jim, congrats on your new Avatar film. I, like so many others, are as excited as hell to see it. However, I was disappointed by your statement on your YouTube interview. Truth is critical. And given the current political situation America finds itself in, I thought you would recognize that truth is important. I'm not sure why you continue to state that Digital Domain was founded by only you and Stan and completely leaving me out of the picture. It's hurtful and upsetting. Digital Domain was the highlight of my life's work. And if your intention is to rewrite history and intentionally try to hurt me, you're very successful once again. Congrats on your success, and I hope your new Avatar film is a giant hit." No response.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I don't.
You were DD.
Yeah. You were. I mean, he wasn't walking around. He wasn't walking around cheering us on.
He sure wasn't.
He wasn't at Martini night.
It is a testament. We mentioned earlier, like I would just knock on your door and go in your office, and everybody would be like, "Why are you walking in his office?" But that was the type of leader you were, and it was amazing because I could talk about guitars and talk about Cream and talk about Clapton. How I met Clapton in a dry cleaner on 3rd Street. I was like, I ran into Clapton, and it was just like, I've worked at so many other companies since then, and it's never been that at all.
Yeah.
Well, the
suits were generally the suits, and I'm not.
Yeah.
The thing I think that was also amazing to me is that, after running into you after all these years, when I ran into you over in Portugal at THU, and you and I had some great conversations, and I was not afraid to ask you some really tough questions, and you took it so well. And you guys, well, Chris, let me explain to you what it was like to be a leader at that time. It was shitty and it was hard, and I had to make tough decisions. And I didn't know all the things that were going on behind the scenes and stuff. And so I was like, oh my God. And I learned through what you said, I learned how hard it is to be a leader and how much I need to sort of take that perspective when I think about tough decisions that were being made. And I was really impressed. So I've always loved chatting with you, and it's always been amazing.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Yeah,
we do have another question from. I just want to make sure that our guys are, because we can just go on and on. But there's Anthony's asking, what do you think about all this new stuff with AI and machine learning and all this AI art that's coming out, and how that's going to affect the visual effects industry? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, the intention, I think, for any of the producers or studios is to, and understandably so, I guess, is to get the best quality work for the lowest possible cost. Right? And that doesn't mean the best quality work. That just means the best quality work for the lowest possible cost. So machine learning is going to do a lot of that stuff, And now I think what will happen is, I think it'll impact places like India and China and Thailand and Brazil the areas that are doing already the rotoscoping, match moving, et cetera, work. And I think that's going to all be done in machine learning. So, and I still think that the great artists are going to rise to the top, and they're going to be in demand, and they're going to get paid even more money than they're getting paid now, because, as we've said, it's all about, the great art. I think a lot of animation will be machine learned, and the like. And the big issue for me, and you might have seen, I did a TEDx talk on this metaverse crap. And, that's the thing that really scares me. The good news is I'm 71 and I might not be around when it happens, but it's a really scary thought. We've seen what's happened with the internet, what's happened with suicide rates and self-image and inability to be able to have conversations with people, and the polarization of societies. I think it's going to get much worse if the metaverse turns out to be what people are talking about. And so I believe AI will have a big impact on that. And if you like Mark Zuckerberg and his new company Meta, and you trust him and you think he's a good guy, well, then you're crazy.
I went fly fishing in front of his house in Kauai, I'll tell you that. It was a little bit weird, a little bit strange. And that the people in Kauai, they hate all the celebrities, they hate him. They hate him.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. Good Lord. No. Yeah. So, like with the metaverse, like I feel like there's, because
I'll be right back, guys.
Oh yeah, hit it. Like, because what we've been talking about essentially since we started on Apocalypse Now is like people develop more and more like hardcore political bubbles that they live in, and so what you're saying essentially is like once you can live in your own personalized world, you can no longer communicate with people.
Correct.
Right. And so like the thinking about that in terms of like whatever machine learning, when you talk about like machine learning and the art that it generates, like that is put together out of a zillion samples of other people's art.
Sure.
Right. And if you don't have people communicating between each other, artists communicating between each other, then I don't know what happens to art itself, because I don't think that art just comes from a single person. I think it comes through working with other artists and bouncing off of experiences and other people,
particularly in moving images.
Yeah.
It's all inspiration, right?
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of it.
I do want Apocalypse Now without the group without the, like, if it's just John Milius, you don't get Apocalypse Now.
Right. That's exactly right. Yeah.
I want to, by the way, I want to say I'm going to be celebrating with one of my favorite beers. This is an Allagash Curyu. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of it.
Look at that.
Nope. No.
This is delicious. It is actually a Belgian style beer, but it's made in Maine, and it's a triple, and it's aged in bourbon barrels, and it's absolutely delicious. However, it is slightly, you have to be cautious because it is 10.2% alcohol for a beer.
It contains arsenic, so you have to be very careful with the arsenic. It will kill you.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah,
that's good.
But I'm very excited about this 100th episode, Scott. And we're not near done, but I just want to say,
I hope so, because I actually have another session at 1:00.
Okay.
No sweat.
Yeah.
No sweat.
All right.
You said 2 hours, so I've got to.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, can we quickly ask then? Like, you've gotten the rights back for your first screenplay for 1,000 Crayons, right? What are you into now that you want to talk about? And what do you see things going?
Well, oh gosh, 1,000 Crayons is, I got it back. It's my lifelong passion project. And I got a director, which I'm really excited about, his name is Martin Campbell. He directed,
Campbell, sure.
Zorro and Casino Royale. And so, I've got this wonderful, erudite, I think great British director that's on board. And now we're putting together talent to try to lock into talent with it. The budget's going to be, if it's a streamer, it'll probably be $100 million and 7 parts. If it's a film, it'll probably be $200 million.
Right.
There's a lot of atomic bombs and stuff going. It's a period piece, 1945.
Right.
Right.
And so I'm still working on that. I have another project called Ping Pong, which is a difficult situation now considering the Chinese-American relations. It's sort of the true story of what happened with ping pong diplomacy in 1971.
Oh, yeah.
Having nothing really to do with Henry Kissinger and Richard Nixon, but having to do with a bunch of bad news bears kids that are Americans that play ping pong.
That's a good one.
True story.
That's cool. I like that.
And then the third one, and not being a religious person at all, but I have a project called Yeshua, and it's the missing years of Christ's life, where he travels to India and he studies, Hinduism, and then winds up in China with Buddhism, comes back through Persia, learns Zoroastrianism, and then comes back and, he is now Jesus the Christ.
Right.
Of course, I can't get anybody to finance that, particularly, in the studio realm. So we're still, so those are the 3 film projects that I'm working on. And trying to learn how to play, altered diminished scales and play over dominant 7th chords and learn my 2-5-1s.
Nice.
And then I've something that I thought I would never do because I was this countercultural lefty person. I've actually taken up the game of golf.
What? Wow.
Okay.
And I
What your younger self say to that?
I play golf every Thursday with this guy, Arnie Schmidt. No. And Arnie was our client at Digital Domain. He did Chain Reaction. He was a producer. And then the other guy that plays with us is a guy named Don Shaw. And he was an All-American volleyball and basketball player. And so he actually is good. And Arnie and I suck.
That's amazing.
It's funny. I grew up in Greenwich, Connecticut, and I despise golf. I don't play golf.
I'm sure you do, yeah.
No, I don't. I don't play golf.
I'm sure you despise it, yeah.
I grew up right by the entrance of a golf country club. It bores me like beyond.
I have to tell you, I knew nothing about. I worked on a golf video game when I first started in the business. I worked in video games. I worked on a thing called British Open Golf. It was like we had Jim McKay as the announcer, all this kind of stuff. And I am. I don't know if you can tell from my general build, I'm not a sports guy. And so they're like, okay, so you're going to be art directing on this thing, and we need to we're going to send you to Scotland, and you're going to go. And so I went to like Troon and St Andrews and all this stuff.
Wow.
I spend all day with the groundskeeper at St Andrews, and I'm taking photos and interviewing all this kind of stuff. And I don't know who any of these guys are. I don't know any of this at all. And like I told my friend who it's super into golf, and I was like, oh yes, I was talking to blah 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 blah, and the hate in his eyes was like lasers. Like, how can you it's wasted on you? And I was like, the only thing I could tell him was like, I was walking around with the greenskeeper, and I was like, so I understand Jack Nicklaus also makes his own designs his own courses, and the greenskeeper goes, oh yeah, Nicklaus, he's a bad pig of a man.
I love the Scots.
All right, Scott, I want to let him know I think we're going to keep going even after you've left, which is fine. You can totally do that. I'm happy to
thank you
stay as long as you can. But I do want to ask you one last question before you go, because that's been burning in the back of my mind. There is a moment. I feel that there's a moment right now that's happening in filmmaking or even streaming or picture narratives, let's just say, where there's animation is going to really start to change a lot. And there's a lot of stuff that like Tim Miller's doing with Love, Death and Robots and other types of things that I think is going to be very interesting and experimental. What are your thoughts on animation and if that's going to be something big or not?
So for years and years and years and years and years, I was, animation is for kids.
Right.
Animation is just for children. Why? What are you doing here with Fritz the Cat? Forget about it. Animation is for kids. Ralph Bakshi, come on, man.
Right.
It's no longer, and here's the reason why. Because your generation are just a bunch of children. and I asked my 37-year-old son, what is it about Comic-Con? I find it's almost like perverse. These people dress up in these outfits and they go and they're like 40-year-old people. What the hell
just
is
so you
this
know,
about?
I've never seen a Marvel movie in my life. I'm the outlier of this group, and I agree with you because Comic-Con, it's a complete waste of time.
I mean, I just don't understand it. But he had a great explanation. He said, when we grew up in the 80s, everything for us was wonderful. Life was great. things were cool. We were having a good time. It was our youth. And now we live in the most horrible times that America has ever seen. The threat of nuclear war, the threat of famine, the outrageous climate change that's happening. We're scared to death. And so it is our nostalgia, and let us live in it. And so as a result, I think animation will have a giant future.
But what about like Alberto Miego? Remember him from TH? Alberto's stuff is incredible.
He got all the good-looking women. I hate it.
He did get all.
Did he really?
Oh my God!
Okay, I just like that.
My wife was with me, and she was like, "Who is that Spanish guy?" It's like I don't get it. You know?
He's an animator. My God,
that's right. They
His
love
stuff
him.
for the new Love, Death, and Robots is beautiful.
Yeah, it is amazing. It's stunning. Absolutely stunning.
But even Fincher's experimenting. I guess Fincher's Gen X too, right? So,
but Fincher's also Dave's like I've known Dave for 100 years. You know, 100 years. He was an assistant Matt cameraman at ILM,
sure.
And Dave is, in my opinion, he's incredibly brilliant. But he has the desperate desire to hold on to youth. He'll do anything. He'll do anything to
50-year-old teenager
within reason to do anything that's hip and cool. He so desperately wants to be hip and cool. I gave him 1,000 Crayons to read, and he said, "Gosh, I love it. I would never do anything like that." And because it didn't hit his film noir funny bone.
Right. Yeah, I hear that.
That's right.
Well, man, I want to say thanks from all of us on this. This has been a tremendous morning. I love talking about this movie, but it's great to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you guys, and thanks for all the kind words.
Thank
you. When you're in the third stage, third act of your life, it's really good to hear that you've changed people's lives.
Yep,
legendary, dude.
Absolutely.
For sure. Scott, you're a legend, and you've always been a great friend, and I thank you so much for doing this and for helping us celebrate this.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks a lot, sir.
Bye-bye.
Right on.
Take care, man.
Thanks, Scott.
That was awesome.
Man, what a guy.
Wasn't that great?
That was terrific. That was terrific.
Yeah.
And
And
now we're going to
Chris,
continue
for
to go.
setting that up.
We're going to keep on going. So I want to say thanks to everyone in chat, but we are still going.
Yeah, we are still going. We're still going. We still have things. We still have to talk about Apocalypse Now.
Yeah, we're still getting some Apocalypse Now talk. Hey, man, it's all good.
Yeah.
It's all good.
Yeah, I'm glad. I know, Eric, I know you've always been a fan of Scott, especially because you guys have kindred spirit on music. Yeah, I
was in
didn't.
the New York rock and roll scene, he just knew everybody, man. And we both love the same guitar.
He played cowbell with Jimi Hendrix.
That's insanity. It's
crazy.
What a story.
It's on the album.
Yeah, that's incredible.
If you're a cowbell on the album, it's Scott Ross.
It needs no more cowbell than that. We have exactly the right cowbell. It's Scott Ross.
What a life.
Man.
What a
that was a pleasure.
beautiful
I hadn't seen Scott in quite some time, and
that was a lot of fun.
I feel bad. I mean, he read that letter to Cameron.
Yeah. Why would you do that?
He's written many emails to Cameron. He's actually read to me several emails to Cameron, and the
thing is,
you just have to stop. You have to give it up.
The point is, if you were Cameron, you have money, you've achieved as an artist. Why would you? What's the point of just rewriting history?
I don't think he wants it. I think that when Titanic happened, that it was a bad deal between the two of them, and I think Cameron just wants to pretend that Scott Ross doesn't exist anymore.
But I think that you can't do that.
Yeah, and in terms of what he's trying to do now, I think that he is because what's his name? The third gentleman, the makeup effects guy, Scott. Who
Stan Winston.
Stan Winston. Winston is a famous name and a force for his company, and I think that Cameron looks at this stuff as here's someone whose name I can use as a logo on what I'm doing in terms of selling what I'm currently doing. Cameron is I don't know the guy at all. I don't have anything bad to say about him, but he's always on the make in terms of trying to promote the thing he's doing right now. And so I don't think that he does anything publicly that isn't about that, and I think that and so Scott is one of the legends of the industry. He's one of the most important people that has ever been in terms of the way that visual effects
He
went.
is the
like
Lamborghini of visual effects, and let me tell you, let me explain why. Did you know that Lamborghini as a company was formed out of spite for Ferrari?
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And so he did a lot of stuff at ILM that sort of brought ILM to the digital age, right? And so that's the thing that, sort of made the CG work there. And when he left, he was like, no, screw you guys. I'm going to do DD. It's going to be the way I've always wanted to do it. And honestly, I felt the same way. Like, I've complained about places I've worked, and I've kept doing things, and my wife kept reminding me, is like, it's not your company.
Yeah,
when it's your company, then you can do what you want.
But Scott, it's like Scott has an innate, unquenchable vision for the doing of it, for the art of it, and like for pushing things forward, and making sure that this stuff is cutting edge and great and beats everything, and the responsibility to that core fire that he's talking about. And I think that's difficult for someone like what I imagine James Cameron is like to work with, because Cameron has his own, he has an agenda. He has an agenda for James Cameron. Right?
Well, Scott has an agenda for Scott too, but I think what is interesting is Scott, what's interesting to see Scott today is that Scott's like, he has all of that knowledge and experience behind him, and he's re-energizing it into what he's doing. And it, like you said, is the third act of his life. But 1,000 Cranes, man, if that happens,
yeah, it can be legendary. It'd be great.
I mean, I don't know if people know the story, but basically, he when I was first at DD, he was starting to make movies there. Right. So he was actually trying to turn Digital Domain into a production studio.
Yes.
And they made one movie called Secondhand Lions with Robert Duvall, which is really a pretty good movie, actually.
Yeah, it's a good movie. It's a very good movie.
It's a good movie. And there was a couple other ones, and there was another one called Instant Karma.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of a little bit of a comedy that was interesting. But then he had 1,000 Cranes, and that was a big thing. And he was really, really passionate about it. And then when Digital Domain got sold, this is Digital Domain 2.0. That script was part of the property that was owned.
It got tied up in all that stuff. Yeah.
Got tied up in that. And so when John Textor, bankrupted the company, I'm going to say it. Who cares? I don't care. That he still had that as something. So Scott fought really hard to get that back from Textor.
Right.
And he has it now. So, yeah.
Yeah,
so,
I mean,
that's his baby, right? And so, you can imagine, Eric, if someone held you hostage with the property and story of your life,
exactly
how that could feel.
Yes, exactly.
I don't know how that feels.
Yeah,
you have no experience in that whatsoever.
You have no experience in that. So this is something I think you should, maybe you can continue this conversation with Scott about that.
It's probably
I think there's some advice that he could give you on this situation.
Yeah.
But this is the thing, is that my impression of Scott has always been you get someone the way that Cameron works is that Cameron is very much there's no difference between Cameron and the movies he's making. He's just completely focused on himself in that thing, right? Whereas I always get the picture from Scott he is. Sure, he's doing stuff that he is interested in, but he always has the time to make sure that other people catch fire about their own stuff. He wants to see people excited about doing this stuff, because that's where the best stuff comes from. And so, it's not centered in just promoting the name Scott Ross. It is centered in making great fucking stuff, right? And I think that's the big difference between him and, say, like I said, I don't know James Cameron, but I've never heard of a project that has James Cameron tied up with it that doesn't talk about James Cameron.
Well, so here's the thing, actually, and honestly speaking, I'll tell you, there's something very inspirational about Scott to me, because this is a lot of the way that I operate in some ways. And what Scott does is he doesn't know how to do everything, but he always knows someone who can.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And so that's the way that I operate. Listen, I'm not necessarily the best of anything that I do, but I know a lot of people, and I can pick out talent really well.
Right.
And picking out talent and having a good Rolodex, that is my superpower.
That is your art. That is
my art,
yes.
right? And that's called being. I wasn't told this until Donna Smith again told me. It's like, that's called being a good producer, Chris.
That's what producing should be. That's what it always should be.
And it is like, I don't know how to do this, but I know someone who does.
Yeah, exactly, dude. Exactly.
And that's what Scott does. I mean, look at all the people he talked about just now. So I was pretty interesting.
Well, I think that's it, and I feel like it's. I mean, I feel bad for him that like he feels like he's being shut out of history.
That's bullshit, man.
It's bullshit.
You can't do that to other artists. I know it sounds.
And I think that
hippie shit, but it isn't, man.
Well, this is the thing: is that like when when he talks about Cameron, et cetera, with no response. Like, I'm thinking that I don't think that Cameron is like necessarily has any personal investment in hurting Scott Ross necessarily. I don't know.
Right.
Maybe like I think that more than likely
I think Cameron just wants to pretend that Scott didn't exist.
Well, it's just more
because
efficient.
I mean, he's so angry at. I mean, there was a lot of bad blood during Titanic.
I think that Cameron
wants
what's great
movie to make, dude. I mean, it was. You know what I mean?
I know, but like Scott was like, "What are you doing? You're bankrupting your own company."
Yeah.
Like he's like, so.
Right. And the thing is, like, that's the thing. It's like, with Stan Winston. I mean, I'm not wrong. Stan passed on, right? He died.
He did.
Yeah.
He died. Yeah.
So like Stan is his name is set in stone. Like Stan Winston cannot mess with you. He's just a legend. That's what it is.
In fact, there's a Stan Winston school that's run by his son.
Yeah, and rightly so. The guy was a genius, and the work he did was incredible and incredibly important to the filmmaking community. Yeah. Whereas, like Scott, even at 71 now, is a fucking loose cannon.
He does not look 71, dude.
No, not at all.
Really?
But he is still obviously a creative force. He's a creative force with opinions.
Wow.
And like that's for someone like Cameron, that's not what Cameron needs. That's trouble. Like you don't want to deal with some, like this.
Yeah,
is like, it's
he's
just
a
like
Coppola. He's a Coppola.
Yeah, he's a Coppola. Like this is it. And so then none of what I'm saying.
He is a Coppola.
Yeah,
he is.
Like, I'm not dissing James Cameron at all. Like. James Cameron is trying to run the James Cameron business, and I totally get it. Obviously, I go to bat for Cameron all the time. But like Scott Ross is right, and there's no wonder why he likes
Titanic.
You love. I would do it today if you would eat it. But I love Cameron's work. I think he's amazing. However, Cameron is not a Coppola, right? Like Coppola would never have made Avatar. Like he wouldn't do that. It's impossible.
He did Apocalypse Now.
He did Apocalypse Now, and then, so it's no wonder why Scott Ross loves Apocalypse Now, because like that is the heart of who he is. It's just like we are gonna fucking figure this thing out and get some crazy art made. Like, and I'm just gonna jump in and do this thing. Like that's the vision, and that's not something that Cameron's ever gonna do. He does less and less of that with every movie. And so
he's
like
a corporate director.
Yeah, and like I mean, he's corporate unto himself. He's an enormous.
Of course, you have to be a corporate director if your movies cost like $400 million. You have to be a corporate director.
Yes,
you're
because
a theme park designer.
Well, this is the thing. Without dissing his movies, I can say that like
I'm not dissing his movies. They're theme park movies.
Like his movies are essentially Marvel done right unto themselves. Like he has total control over them. He knows exactly what the experience is. Like it's Space Mountain. It's just like Titanic is the Space Mountain of Titanic. Like it's an entirely sealed event. You will experience it, and it's going to be exactly the way you wanted it to go for you. Whereas, like, you can't watch Apocalypse Now and not have your own opinion. Like that movie is like
it's forcing you to deal with emotions that you rather not think about.
Yes, exactly. And you're going to disagree with other people who also love it.
Like and I think actually we brought this up as like Milius and Coppola are so diametrically opposed ideologically.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Well,
I think
apparently someone put in chat, Eric, Clapton is a big right-wing guy now.
Who? Clapton is? That's wild.
Who said it in chat? Really? Someone put it in chat. Oh God, where was it? Oh no! Someone in chat remind me who said that Clapton's a big right wing guy now, which is
I'm shocked. I'm shocked at that. That's bizarre.
Oh yeah, it's McMonkey Man.
Geez, well, I trust that.
Is that
That was a good
true?
source. We back that source.
McMonkey Man, we need some source material.
Oh, no,
of,
I would trust Tom.
I want a picture of Eric Clapton voting for Trump.
Yeah, with
the ballot box.
Rumsfeld. Yeah, doing cocaine with Rumsfeld in the 70s. That's what we need. Yeah, yeah, like, but that's the thing. It's like you know, like I suppose if I think about it in context of like, if you had said like Neil Young is now a Republican, I'd be like, I'm obviously in a VR environment right now. This isn't real. Clapton maybe. But yeah, dude,
Wow.
I'm always very impressed with Scott. I always think I'm particularly impressed with. It's just like with Coppola making his Metropolis movie. It's just like
That sounds great, dude.
He's still fucking throwing bombs. Like I'm just like, go man. That's insane.
Yeah,
that's the best.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, Scott was perfect for this podcast. I'm so glad we made it happen.
That's true.
Amazing that he did it, and the fact that he's giving me his gold top.
It's so nice of him. My God, that's
can I just merely point out the fact that I looked at it through Zoom, with all my eyesight, and I said that's a 56 gold. Did I not just nail that 56 gold top?
It's on record.
Yeah,
it's on record.
It's on. No, that was unfortunately that happened before we hit.
It started. People listening.
People in chat. I was quietly amazed. Like the guitar is this big on screen.
Basically, we started.
This year, so
We got all the connections going about 15 minutes before we went live, and Eric immediately, as it goes, he's like, "Wait a minute, that's a 56 blah blah blah, and that's a blah blah blah, and it's a hummingbird." Someone else will mention the hummingbird in the background, and then yes, Scott brought up. He's like, "Yeah, you're right. It is a 56 blah blah." Yeah.
So mind blowing. I would not be able. I couldn't identify. Like if I knew anything.
There's only 800 by 600 pixels on the screen, and Eric identified the guitar.
56, baby.
That was crazy.
1956. That is the year of the Hungarian Revolution.
Look at that.
Huh.
I know that because my mother is Hungarian, and she escaped Hungary in 1956.
Wow.
There it is.
Yeah.
About it. Like that.
She literally was running across the border as a 16-year-old girl.
Oh my God!
With machine gun bullets firing at them as they try to get into Austria.
Yikes! Yeah. Less
and
of
then
that
she was a political refugee in the United States and met my father, and here I am.
There it is. The magic. But yeah, it was great to have him on, and we only get to sort of glance on Apocalypse Now, but it's just sort of like I think it was like the context of his appearance is core to Martini Giant, in that what we always argue for is that kind of passion about art and movies.
I think it is amazing that he brought up without having ever listened to our podcast, he brought up all the same points that we brought up.
Dude, well, it's
same musicals, same things. He said exactly the same. It's like,
this is hysterical. We're like, literally, I was just like, we just said this yesterday. Literally. Yes. And then we weren't recording it. We were just saying it.
Yeah. So he is totally on the same page as us, and it was amazing. So I didn't prompt him. All I asked him was like, can you be on the podcast? And he's like, sure. First of all, how awesome is that? Like, I literally texted him as like, hey, I'm doing the 100th episode. And then he just called me and was like, what's going on, Chris? What can you do? And I was like, oh my God, can you just like, yeah, we'll make it work. And so, and this is just as
I think he had a good time.
I think he had a good time. Yeah. Well, yeah, this we're his people, man.
Yeah, dude.
We're his people.
That was definitely fun. That was definitely a good deal. Does this feel like we're headed towards an ad break? And then regroup.
Oh, do you need an ad break? Do you need an ad break?
I may need an ad break.
You do need an ad break. Okay, so I will go for an ad break. I'm going to give us a 2-minute ad break, and then we will be back. And actually, we will be talking about Apocalypse Now. I actually want to get into the actual plot of it.
Yeah, let's do it.
You going to get a little food?
Yep. Yeah. So please stay with us.
Okay. And we're going for a 2-minute ad break, and I'm going to hit it right now, and then we'll be right back. I will sit here and continue to talk while these guys go. For those of you who do not have commercials, I'll be available. All right. All right, guys.
I'll be right back. I appreciate it.
All right. We are going. Oh my God, everyone's leaving. Okay. So for you guys. Yes, a lot of bladders need to be emptied, so go ahead and empty your bladders, and it's not a problem. I really appreciate this, and I really am excited about the fact that we had 100 episodes of this. I did not know that podcasting would be something that I would be doing at all. when I first started. This was something that I did obviously with CG Garage. When I started CG Garage, which is actually coming up on 8 years. And I didn't really think about, the fact that I would be broadcasting stuff out there. It was just an idea that I had. And Chaos was very generous with saying, come up with ideas of things you want to do. And I decided, hey, maybe what if I do a podcast? This would be interesting. And it did, and it took off. So Martini Giant actually started, for those of you who have not actually been following the podcast, Martini Giant started actually as a spin-off of CG Garage. And what that was is CG Garage is obviously a podcast that I do for Chaos. And it's mostly based on CG stuff. But when I decided, like, hey, I need a little break from something, I invited Dan to come on board, and we would talk about movies. And it turns out, obviously, because most of CG Garage is 1 hour episodes, when Dan would come on, it'd go to 2 to 3 hours, because he and I would end up just chatting about Star Wars for 2 to 3 hours. And it was a lot of fun. And they became pretty successful in a lot of ways, which was exciting. But the thing that was interesting is that when we would do these basically every few months, I would put on a Dan Thrawn episode, right? And so Dan then would be this repeat guest. And then I decided, who would be really great as part of this conversation is Eric. And so we invited Eric on to CG Garage to be part of these film conversations. And those were really great. And then after a few years of that, and this was 4 years ago, by the way, that we kicked off this whole thing, we decided, let's actually spin off Martini Giant into another podcast. Now, why did we call it Martini Giant? The reason we called it Martini Giant is actually pretty hilarious, because Dan and I, when we were both working at Digital Domain, which was catty corner to the Firehouse, we would take slight breaks because we were working, very long hours. We would go to the Firehouse, and we would have a cocktail at the Firehouse and chit chat before going back to work. And he and I would drink martinis. And because of the fact that Dan has a striking resemblance to Hagrid from Harry Potter, and he would be. We're talking about the origin story of Martini Giant. And he would hold these martini glasses, and some of the other regulars that were not Digital Domain people would be hanging out, and they apparently nicknamed Dan the Martini Giant because he looked like a giant holding a martini glass.
Exactly.
And this was told,
large 6'3" man with a tiny little martini glass.
Right. And so this was told to us by one of the waitresses over there, and we thought it was hilarious. And Daniel Buck was with us at the time, said that is amazing. And so on his phone at that exact moment, he registered the domain martinigiant.com.
Martini Giant. That's
and
right.
that was sitting there just in his GoDaddy account or whatever it was forever. And then when we said, what are we going to spin off this podcast? What are we going to call it? And I said, Daniel Buck still has the domain Martini Giant. Let's just call it Martini Giant. And that is basically where the origin story of Martini Giant happened. So here we are, 100 episodes later, which is 4 years later. We've been doing this for 4 years. We average 25 shows a year because we do it every 2 weeks, which is technically 26, but we take usually 1 day off or so, or 1 week off. So that's where we are. So we've literally 4 years, man. It's great. And I love being with these guys. I got to tell you, with hanging out with Eric and Dan, which we do almost on a daily basis these days, because we're actually trying to come up with some new projects and ideas collaboratively and creatively, which is very exciting. Hanging out with you guys every day is one of my highlights. This is the thing that I feel like, I'm talking with my peeps, right? I'm talking with my guys, and I'm not dealing with people that don't get it. You guys get everything I'm trying to say, so I appreciate it.
Well, back at you, brother. Yeah, no, this has definitely been like one of the very greatest creative relationships of my whole life, and it allows me to blather about the stuff I love the most with people that I respect the most about the stuff, and it's I'm very lucky to be a part of it. So 100 is easy. 100 is easy.
Yeah, 100 is easy, right? So let's see, like when we get to 200, I think we want to be like it's going to be a very different show, and it's going to be very different organization. I know that I'm fighting hard for Eric and his creative struggling that he's dealing with right now. But I want that successful so much, so I'm fighting hard for Eric at this point. Yep. He's my hero. So I'm going to make this happen.
Fight hard for Martini Giant. We got to.
Well, Martini Giant is going to help you. That's what I'm trying to make happen.
This is it, man. Well, it's a special thing, the Giant, and we want to like
dance stuff too.
I feel very good about our future stuff together. And that I think it's fair to say that our vision for what Martini Giant both is and can grow into is larger than just talking about individual
far beyond a podcast.
So
but the flavor of the podcast is what it's about. Yeah.
So that's the seed of all that stuff. It's very exciting.
All right.
But again, having Scott on to talk about that kind of inspiration is a good jumping off point for that stuff.
Yeah, because I think he gets it, right? Like he gets what we are, and he gets the struggle that we're dealing with. So, and he, listen, God, man, he's 71 and he's still struggling with it, right?
Yep. Never stops.
And we all keep going. Will. We're not just going to sit there on our coattails. No, he is still fighting for things that are important to him, which is great.
Yeah,
which is really great. Yeah,
that's like hearing that I'm so happy that he got that fucking script back. I thought that was to be lost.
Oh yeah, I thought it was lost. I remember him like this was, and that was the one that was the most important to him, right?
Yeah.
Secondhand Lines is like that. I can make that movie. Like that.
That's
movie
a good movie. Yeah,
that's a good movie.
That's a movie to make.
That's someone and I think he was right. Like that's the first one that I can sell pretty easily, right?
Yeah. So absolutely.
And he did that right. I think. It was interesting. Like Instant Karma probably could have been pretty cool as well. I remember Instant Karma, man. When they were casting stuff or they were looking at people coming in for Instant Karma, I remember Jason Alexander came in, which was pretty hilarious. But the best 2 stars that came to DD to talk about Instant Karma was Burt Reynolds and Dom DeLuise.
Oh my God!
I remember Dom DeLuise.
These leads up his nose.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and it was amazing. And I remember there was.
Didn't you offend Dom DeLuise? Didn't you call him fat or base?
Hey, weren't you a fatso? Fatso.
Yeah, something. Wait a minute. I want to clarify. I think you did, but anyway,
I did not. But I will say that Dom DeLuise, who is a very charismatic person and basically just owns the room everywhere he goes.
Sure.
Decided that he wanted to work the reception desk at DD for a little bit. And he sat at the reception desk as people were coming in.
How
can you imagine walking in? Yes. And he answered the phone. Hello, digital domain. Like literally he was doing that. It was so funny.
That's insane.
And the other thing that was funny was Kelly Lestrange. Do you remember Kelly Lestrange? Yeah. I think it was her birthday. I believe it was her birthday. And they were going to do that cheesy corporate thing where like, oh, come to the conference room for an impromptu meeting, and they're going to give her a cake, right? Right. So she shows up at the conference room. There's no cake. But then who shows up around the corner but Burt Reynolds, who delivers her cake for her?
Oh, my God, dude. How great was that, dude?
Can you imagine?
That would be a tale I'd tell for the rest of my life if that happened to me.
Yes. I'm pretty sure that happened, and I'm almost positive it was Kelly Lestrange.
Yeah. The only difference is if I told that story, I would refer to him as Gator rather than Burt. And there's Gator. Gator with a cake.
Gator with a cake.
That is it.
All right. So I do want to, I want to make sure that people are like, okay, just tell me why. We've talked a lot about the importance of the making Apocalypse Now, and honestly speaking, that is almost as important as the movie itself. But we should talk about what the movie is, and I actually want to run through the plot a little bit.
Yep, hit it.
If you guys can do it with me. So the first thing you should note is that the entire film takes place with no credits in it whatsoever. not even the title of the movie. The only way that they got it to be called Apocalypse Now, and the way they did it, is that it has to be included somewhere in the movie at some point, and it appears as graffiti about
On the
three-quarters on the wall, three-quarters through the film, and that is how it's called, why it's called Apocalypse Now, and how I got that title, and how I was able to keep the title.
Right.
But the entire film starts with no credits and ends with no credits. I think the only thing at the end, it says copyright Zoetrope, whatever.
That's it.
Right?
Yeah. Very few films have ever done anything like that, even now.
Right. And still to today, no one would ever let that pass. Like literally, just it goes. So when minute 0 happens at the end of it, that is literally the end of the film. No credits, incredible process. But starts off, opening sequence, as we mentioned in the past, is the Doors song "This Is the End," which is very ironic, obviously, because it's the beginning of the film, but it is the end of the world, and it's a bunch of helicopters and hellfire and just destruction by the Doors. Right.
Yeah.
Slow motion. Am I right? Slow motion.
Yeah.
And very weird sound design. Like the. Yeah.
I mean, seriously, at that time, no one did anything like that.
It's pretty wild. It's pretty wild.
Right.
Like,
I mean, people now, if you hear that effect, which does happen, it's a reference to Apocalypse Now.
Yeah. Because
like you hear that reference is like the slow motion helicopter effect sound. That's done constantly now, but it's probably because they were inspired by Apocalypse Now.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Right. And it's absolutely amazing. So the Doors are singing, etc. And then we go to Charlie Sheen's. Not Charlie. I keep saying Charlie. Apparently, Charlie Sheen was in this as a young person.
Oh, really?
It was taken out of the movie. Yeah, it was cut out, but he was a delivery boy or something like that. Anyway, Martin Sheen, his father, who is in a hotel room. I guess it's his second tour in Vietnam, right? That's what it's supposed to be. Go ahead.
Yeah, so
he's seen this on the back of your eyeballs. You know exactly.
Yeah, I did. No, like, so yeah, Martin Sheen is sort of a special forces guy, and he is laid up in a hotel in Saigon, waiting for his orders, his next round of orders. And as the movie goes, you sort of get more and more of his background. Like they employ him to do wet work and sort of the dirty work behind the scenes. Yeah, exactly.
By the way, wet work is CIA terminology where you come in, you do like all like surface cleaning, Windexing.
Oh yeah, you're right. No, I totally. I thought it was that he made flan.
Yeah.
That's one of those two things.
Keep going. Sorry.
But so he's making a flan, but he wakes up in Saigon with a classic line like, "Shit, I'm still in Saigon," and he talks about like, "I just want to get back into the jungle and into the fight. Like when I'm home, life doesn't make any sense. It only makes sense here." Right.
But he's also drunk.
And so he doesn't know what to do with himself. So he just drinks himself silly. Like when he is not part of the war, like he is just drinking himself into nonsensicality. Right. And you see him obliterate himself because he wants to just destroy.
And as we
himself.
mentioned before, he was actually in that state when they filmed them, and the filmmakers were kind of feeling incredibly hard about filming that situation.
Right. And Sheen said that he wanted to do that. Like this was
Sheen's was big at that time. Right?
Sheen's choice to say okay to this. But he is a fucking mess in the beginning of the movie. And as you compare it to any other part of the movie, when he's on the mission, he is stone cold, completely together, has no reservations about anything. Like he's just like, this is what I'm here to do. But you see his inner core exposed at the very beginning of the film, which is just like, I'm actually a mess, and I don't know how to merge my actual sort of non-war life with my war life. My war life makes sense, but when I try to live a regular life, it makes no sense. And so I'm a drunken self-destructive fool, right? And he gets so drunk that he's just like, like he's he punches a mirror, which is symbolic.
Which he actually did. I think that was impromptu, by the way.
Yes, like he's doing these sort of weird karate moves, punches a mirror
in his underwear,
in his underwear, and he cuts his hand really, really badly. They continue to film
for real,
bleeding all over everywhere. And him punching the mirror is a symbolic event where like there's two, like he truly hates himself, like he's in a bad spot in his life, and
does not want to see the reflection of himself.
Exactly,
which is interesting because this is something I should note. Like, there's a lot in this movie that is unscripted, right?
Yes.
Including.
But they saw that it was important. So
they saw this as like, oh, this is an important thing. So like the fact that they took those moments and it's like, oh, that is a moment that represents you and the film. Well, and they took it,
right, because Coppola's the way that he went about making movies, especially at that point, was like there's a script and we're filming a bunch of stuff and we're definitely trying to guide where the movie goes, but we're going to get everything and we're going to have like a documentary influence where it's just like if we catch something that works, we're putting it in there, And so like this sets up Martin Sheen's character in a very interesting way because you never see him like this for the rest of the film, but it's in the back of your mind. So he messes himself up, totally cut, blah, blah, blah. And then the MPs come and they're just like, you have to come with us, sir. And he thinks it's because he's done something bad or he's blacked out and did something, whatever it is. But in fact, they have a very special mission for him.
Right.
And so
who's the person who briefs him on a mission?
Harrison Ford.
Which is interesting. So Harrison Ford also should note is like this was after like in terms of the filming, this was after American Graffiti, but before Star Wars. However, Apocalypse Now took so long to make that by the time it came out, Star Wars was already famous. So he became famous between the filming and the release of this film.
And in Star Wars, he's obviously this cocky jackass fun character, right? And then, but in Apocalypse Now,
what his name is in Apocalypse Now is, right?
No.
J. Lucas.
Oh, really? Wow. That's funny. That's funny.
Or G. Lucas, sorry.
G. Lucas. So, that's funny.
Yeah, because he wanted to credit George Lucas for giving him his career.
That is as good as like I only found this out like 3 years. I think we might have been a podcast on it, but I didn't know that Malcolm McDowell is named his character for Clockwork Orange because he's only called Alex in the book, but in the movie he's listed as Alex DeLarge. And I'm just like, Alex DeLarge is the greatest possible name for that character. And now I have another story, which is the G. Lucas story.
Ahead.
That's fantastic. I'm agreeing with you. So like that's okay. So like he is a very unassuming, minimized personality. I think this is like
Harrison Ford.
Ford in the scene.
Yeah, he's only in there for like 5 minutes.
But he's like, what's really brilliant, and
but his voice. But the thing is, it's like the Harrison Ford voice of delivering the briefing is perfect.
It's perfect, and we can go more into more detail on it later. But like, that sequence is a perfect setup for what the ultimate statement of the movie is, because these guys that are giving him the lowdown on what to do, like nobody wants to fucking say exactly what it is they want him to do.
Yeah,
like,
I know.
They're really dancing around like it. They're just like, well, there's this Colonel Kurtz, and he's obviously going insane, and he's doing some terrible things. He's off the reservation out in the jungle, they say, and all this, and they're saying how terrible he is, and something's got to be done about him, and like, but no one's saying,
if you can help us, that would be great.
Yeah, exactly. And it isn't like, and even when they finally say
what you need to do,
yeah, exactly. When they finally say, say what they want him to do, it's even phrased in this corporatized speak of like, terminate the colonel's command, and then someone else says with extreme prejudice,
right?
Like, not go kill this motherfucker. Like, that's not, they can't say that.
They can't say he's an assassin. They
can't say that you're like, they won't say that Sheen's an assassin. They'll barely describe what Kurtz is doing. It's all very vague, but they're just like, please terminate the colonel's command, whatever that means, and do it without waiting to find out anything else. Like, you see him just make sure his command is terminated.
Right.
And so like the entire sequence, like you have these guys that they're passing around a dinner plate, and it's like all these sort of like, like all this
the dinner situation was kind of weird. Like
it's weird because
Right.
He made a lot of that guy. Not Bottom. I forget the Bottoms. Who was the actor?
It's not Timothy Bottoms. This is the other guy. It's brother maybe, John Bottoms. I can't remember.
Something.
But yeah,
the guy who played the old guy in the dinner where.
That guy who's also the governor from Godfather 2, who was framed.
He made up those lines.
Oh, really?
He wrote them, and then he brought them to him. And Coppola was like, "Look, I know you're kind of padding, but this is brilliant stuff." So
it's just great. And so, like, all those guys, like, there's a couple of people in the scene that barely say anything. Like, there's the other guy who's just sort of looking and watching the whole time, which reminds me in The Shining when there's the character that is watching the owner of the Overlook describe to Jack Nicholson what the job is, and you're just like, who the fuck is this dude? Like, this guy seems sinister and I don't know why, but like everybody there is talking around the issue, and finally Harrison Ford is the one who has to say terminate the colonel's command, right? And the way he says it is so like embarrassed and small, like he doesn't want to even terminate the colonel's command with and the guys with extreme prejudice, like that, like this is the only thing that needed to be said, and nobody wanted to fucking say it, right? And so this is he gets the dossier on Colonel Kurtz, played by Marlon Brando, and this is the booklet that he is going to be going through, that Sheen's going to be reading for the rest of the movie. And the structure of the movie is as Sheen reads deeper into the document that gives
he goes
Kurtz's
deeper
history,
and deeper into the jungle.
He goes deeper and deeper into the jungle. So metaphorically, these two things are united, right? Yep. And he joins a boat crew, which is headed into the jungle.
Well, first of all, he goes. Before he meets the boat crew, he meets Duvall, who gives him the boat crew.
Oh, right? Yeah, well, no, he's like, they got the boat crew, but Duvall's going to he's got the boat crew immediately, but Duvall is going to Duvall is the gatekeeper that's going to
they need to get up through there, and he says, "I'll carry your boat because you can't get up through there unless you do this."
The boat,
but then one of the crew members is like a famous surfer.
Yeah, so the crew members of Sheen's boat, there's the chief who drives the boat, and he's the guy who's in command of the boat, and the chief is a very he doesn't want to be there. He just
buy the
wants
books guy.
Like, buy the books, get it done, and get the fuck out. Like, he is not interested in whatever this crazy Martin Sheen is there to do. He's just gonna wants to get the fuck out of here as fast as possible. And the way that he knows how to do it is by following orders. That's it. Right. And so he wants to maintain a tight, clean boat. Get in, get out. That's that. You have after that, you have chef, who is a chef. He
was a
saucier, and he's like this, sort of, Midwestern Southern, kind of like, I just want to be a saucier. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right? From Louisiana, right?
Louisiana. And so like he's he's just representative, just like regular dude, like lower class white dude from America, and he's just like, I'm just gonna pretend like this is all just rock and roll and fun, man. Sometimes you gotta do hard stuff.
French too.
Right, it's true. And and then to counterpoint that, you have Lance, who is a famous surfer back in California. Right. And so all between the two of them, all they want to do is just fuck off. Like,
one wants to cook, one wants to surf.
And one wants to surf. So there's like all these scenes of like surfing, like water skiing off the back of the boat, listening to rock and roll. This is it. And then finally you have Lawrence Fishburne, who is suspiciously young, and the actor himself is 14 or 15. Yeah, exactly.
He lied about his age. He was supposed to be 17, and he was 14 when he started.
Right.
Can you fucking believe that?
That's crazy.
Yeah, and Fishburne,
Lawrence Fishburne, like you can barely recognize him as Lawrence Fishburne.
Yeah, he's a little kid. Little kid. And it's not even like he's a little kid compared to Lawrence Fishburne. You would watch the movie, you're like, if you didn't know who Lawrence Fishburne is, you're like, that's a little kid. Like, what the fuck is a little kid doing here? And then the truth of and this is actually something they do in Malick's Thin Red Line as well. In the middle of this battle, they just cut to like an actual 18-year-old kid who's getting shelled, right? And when you see an 18-year-old kid in a situation like that, you're like, what? Wait, what? That's a child.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck are we doing? Like, because usually when you make war movies, you're just like, man, it was tough in war. I was 36, and like all the actors are like deep in their 20s somewhere, and then, but you see like an actual 18-year-old kid, like you're like, that is a little boy, like there's no way around it. And Lawrence Fishburne not only represents this, he also represents the fact that like for the longest time, the Black experience of Vietnam was just not even talked about, even though that's like 1/3 of the people that were there, at least. I think actually I want to point out a couple things. Intuition that's brought up in chat is that yes, part of the embarrassment of having to terminate Kurtz's command is that he had a laundry list of accomplishments and medals. Yes, and great point. Right? Great point. Right. So like he was one of the greatest people out there, and we are asking you to terminate. If he was a crappy general, it wouldn't be as bad. He's some shithead, right? But in fact, like as Sheen is going deeper and deeper into the dossier, Sheen is mesmerized by this guy. Like he is like the lead guy at it's like the military school he goes through. Right. Like he's not even just like he's like he could have taken the easy course and become a 4-star general if he wanted to. Instead, he bails on that tack and joins the Marines when he's 36. Which is impossible. You're not in shape to do anything like this. Then he says like the other kids must have thought he was insane. Some fucking over the hill old man trying to hump it through these courses, but the guy does it anyway. Like he's just like, I'm going to do this. I'm entirely determined. And you see the photographs of him become more and more like he's affected by his choices. He's becoming harder and harder and harder and harder until he, when he gets his command in Vietnam. And like he just takes control, and initially everyone is like, "Nice job, Operation Arclight or whatever it was a tremendous success." And then he takes it further and further and further until he's just killing everyone he sees, and he has a crazed army that follows him to do this. Right, like, and they worship the man, like they say, as a god. Both American and Vietnamese. Yeah, exactly. And so like you get more and more of this as it goes along, and the mechanism of the movie is that it's made up of a bunch of set piece scenes that show you sort of sequences of things that happen in Vietnam that get crazier and crazier and make less and less literal sense until you end up at Kurtz's domain. And so like the first thing you run into is this guy is Colonel Kilgore, who is Robert Duvall. And Robert Duvall is there he's there with his boys fighting the war, and they fly helicopters and they land him. But I think also he's wearing a cavalry hat. Yes, he is like he's old school. Old school, right? Like the cavalry, the cavalry still technically exists as a division. But it's helicopters now. It's helicopters as opposed to horses, right? Yeah. But he's still fucking wearing the cavalry hat. I think, with nothing else. Like the pants and the cavalry hat is like amazing. Apparently, one of the generals or one of the leaders of the cavalry in Vietnam was Patton's son. Oh wow. Interesting. So loosely based off of that inspired guy. By that, yeah. And really apparently that line was like, "I love the smell of napalm in the morning." Like one of the most famous lines from this movie was actually when they said it. I don't know if it was an improv line or not. It could have been an improv. No, Milius wrote that apparently. Milius, okay, so apparently they were like, feels like, oh, this too far, like can't. It's not possible to deliver this line and have it work. Yeah, and it's the most famous line from the movie. It's iconic. Right? Like, it's iconic. And the thing is, it's iconic because of what Duvall does with it. Because like that could be played as like a joke, and he could have made a joke about it. But instead, when he says it, he means it. He gives you real emotion. Yeah. Like this is the truth of it. Like, and this is a glimpse of what I was saying before. It's like Kurtz, when spoiler alert, Kurtz to me in this last watch, I was like, Kurtz is right. Kurtz is doing exactly what the brass are asking him to do. That's the problem, right? Right. And so at the front end, when you meet Duval, like Duval and his team, his cavalry, like they are there doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing, which is murdering everybody in this town, like gunning them down from the sky.
But there was a specific thing they're doing, right? So it's like, yes, et cetera, et cetera. But they're introducing American culture to them. And to them, there's surfing. Surfing became suddenly like, forget about all the other problems.
Right.
Surfing is my most important problem right now.
This is because these are the religious zealots that are the Americans. Like, right. It's a side
Marvel
effect.
films, surfing.
Yeah, like this, like for Kilgore and his crew, like they don't want to kill anybody. It doesn't occur to them to kill anybody. It's just that we have to kill these people so we can surf. Like, what else do you want?
I saw
how else are we going to
the way to deal with the war.
You're totally right. That's right.
Teenager kind of a.
This is how you disassociate, right?
Yeah.
Like, because what you really want is the surfing. Like, you want the Americana experience of this is what America's about. I'm
Doris
a young
Day
teenager.
films.
This is
Bikini
America,
Party.
man. And as a side effect, if you want the surfing,
also
you also
ironically,
kill everybody in the town. Okay.
I want to actually point out, like, Duval makes a point about the style of surfing, about how they use the heavy boards versus the light boards. And he does this in the film, which is specifically separating him from the hippie generation. Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Right. Like, he is the greatest generation
versus riding back. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So like, he is specifically saying, I'm the greatest generation. You are the baby boomers, and
you kids like to ride back on your boards, whatever it is.
Yeah. So he is actually making a generational comment on the surfing style that is important in this thing. And I think it was really interesting. And all of this conversation is happening while fucking bombs are going off everywhere. And he takes them to one of the most dangerous places to go because the brakes of the waves are going to work. And by the way, I should also note that in this, there was another article I read today, which said that in the Philippines, surfing took off as a sport because of Apocalypse.
That's nuts. Really?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. People are like, oh my God, this is a great, they got interested in it because of Apocalypse Now.
There's no good waves in this whole shitty country. It's all goddamn beach break. Yeah. I mean, the
thing though is, like, he would sit there and say, bomb, I want 100 yards from that ridge, just bomb the shit out of it. And then this woman comes with a baby. He's like, help her, get her to the best hospital. It's like, wait a minute.
It's the guy with the gut full out, right? Yeah.
After that, this woman comes with a baby and he takes his shirt off.
Right.
And he's like, blow that ridge, 100 clicks, or blah, 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 blah. Right. And then he's like, oh my God, get her. He grabs the baby and then he cradles the baby and he's like, get her to a hospital. It's like, wait a minute.
Because
you just bomb them.
Yeah. Because this is like the disassociation that is odd. That's everywhere in the scene is amazing, because like Duval is quite proud of what he does. Like, Duval is like, when he tells the napalm story, like, he's not telling, like, he's not barely even telling a story of war. He's like, this is something I'm proud to have done because it gives us the life that we want. Like, this is victory. I've done my job, which is to clear the way for America, and America means surfing. Like, this is what we are, and I am a hero because I do this. And again, he respects heroism because he's like, there's the dude there's the Viet Cong guy with his guts blown out, and he's holding the guts in with like a plate or like a hubcap or something,
which is actually based on a real thing that happened.
Top of
a pot lid, right?
Yeah.
And the guy say, and this South Vietnamese guy is just like, this guy's he's VC, and like, he can drink patty water if he wants water. And Duval's pissed. He's like, anyone who can hold his guts in with a pot lid can drink from my canteen any day, right? He respects bravery because it takes a brave soul to fight for what you believe in, and what he believes in is surfing, which is America, right? And then the moment he says it, he just sort of walks away from that dude. Who cares?
Because wait, there's a surfer here. Hold on, I gotta go meet him.
Because he sees Lance, He's just like, fuck it. And he just takes the canteen. It's like, whatever, heroism,
It's the
whatever.
attention span of American.
Yeah, exactly.
And
So
by the way,
this is America.
Casey acknowledged my story about the Philippines embracing surfing after the movie was made.
So genius, dude.
Okay. All right. So I want to make sure we get through all this. So, okay. So yeah, it is amazing. And so I heard, by the way, that canteen story and the guts thing actually is based on a true story that happened in Vietnam. I believe as an American soldier that happened to. But anyway.
But so yeah, he is like, they have this experience where we witness what the air cab does, which is they mow down this entire village, right?
Right.
And
wait a minute, I just want to clarify. They don't mow down; they kill them.
Yeah, they kill everybody.
No.
And specifically,
James Cameron mows down his front yard. We already established that.
One of my very favorite things in this scene, right, is that this woman. Because like they're shooting up they're shooting up everything from the sky. They have Wagner, which is a suspicious choice. Like they're just killing everybody. Like and like so very sort of like, you know, we were like, isn't this fun killing everybody in this town adventure, right? And then this one woman, a teacher at the school, who they're killing everybody in her town. They're killing kids, and teacher runs out from the school and towards a landed helicopter and throws a grenade in the helicopter and kills a guy, like a single guy. And Robert Duvall says, "Get the guns on her right now. Tear her in half." And then he says his commentary, "Fucking savages."
I know, that was the best.
And I'm just like, you literally just killed everybody here. Everybody. And you are so like that's a bit like, he looks at her like,
that's exactly how I feel about the arguments that are done by the right now when I listen to them, and they're like, oh my god, the liberals are terrible. It's like, if you
like the cognitive
you just fucking
dissonance.
attack the Capitol,
right? The cognitive dissonance going on.
You're trying to start a coup.
Like, you're just like, how can your brain operate like this? Like, it doesn't make any sense. And you can see it on Martin Sheen's face. Like, he's just like, this is insanity. Because like, at least Martin Sheen knows what the fuck he's doing. He's not kidding himself. Like, right. He's like,
oh, he knows. He's like, he just went through that dinner.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, exactly. Like, that's the great way to say it, right? It's like, what you're seeing with the air cav and the attack is the same scene as the dinner scene.
Right.
No one is being honest about what they're actually doing.
Right.
Like, they're not saying it. The only honest moment. Yeah, exactly. The only honest moment is when Duvall says, one day this war is going to end. And he's sad about it. Like, he is like legitimately heartbroken that this can't continue forever. And then you're like, oh, all right, man. And then you leave that, right? And then you go to the scene with the USO, right?
Right.
With the Playboy bunnies dancing. And
so,
like,
right. All right. Okay. So real quick, they go up the river. So basically, this is a journey at the start of the river where you're surfing. So it's on the coast, and they're going upriver, deeper and deeper and deeper. The river gets narrower. The situation gets gnarlier. Mm-hmm. It is down the rabbit hole situation. Yeah. Like, it gets weirder and weirder. Yeah.
The visuals are stranger. The settings are stranger.
It becomes this fantasy as you go up this mythological situation. Right.
And you're getting more and more clarity as you look through the dossier.
Right.
Like, you're seeing like from Sheen's point of view, he's like, so this guy is a sort of military genius as I'm reading about him, and the landscape I'm going into makes less and less sense. And so his vision of what to do about this becomes clearer.
Yeah.
Like there's like the only proper response to this environment is what Kurtz has become. Like, you have to embrace the insanity.
Yeah, but he's still following the orders. It's like,
it is. But what's interesting is that you open up with the insanity of war, and then you're like, that's just the opening, and then we're going to get deeper and deeper and deeper. And then you deal with multiple situations, right? So there's the USO tour. They end up somehow at some camp, which is a USO tour, And the USO tour, if
It's a
for those of
depot
you who are
camp.
not,
It's a supply point.
it's a supply point. But for those of you who don't not necessarily know what that is, who are not necessarily American, USO, there was a lot of people in the entertainment industry that would go and do shows for soldiers in war situations.
Keep up their morale.
To keep up their morale. It was actually big on the Second World War. I believe Bob Hope was a big guy and part of that situation. And it was keep up their morale, et cetera, et cetera. And so this is, and they would fly them into these big stars and big people into some really crazy locations. Like, we're going to get you there. And then these guys have been camped out in the middle of Afghanistan or whatever it is. And it's kind of scary. So in this particular one, they set up this impromptu stage in the middle of the freaking jungle in Vietnam, with a bunch of horny soldiers, and give them 3 top Playboy bunnies to dance for them.
It's crazy.
It's not, I mean, like, just in the face of it, you're like, this may not go well.
Yeah. These guys have been in the jungle for a while.
It's so taunting, though, too. It's just
Well, like the stage has all these big like missiles lined up around it, like all the
guns. The girl was the Playmate of the Year was carried out on 2 AK-47s.
Yes.
The guys were holding up between, and they carried her out on them. It's just like kind of crazy stuff.
Yeah, and so
it really is taunting them.
Right, and the thing is, I mean, it's just like, here are all these soldiers like in the middle of fucking nowhere, and it's like the American dream shows up and it's like, yeah, come on, Playboy, yeah, it's great, right?
Yeah, and literally there's a Playboy decal on the front of the helicopter,
right?
Which is
it's so fucking off-putting and surreal. Like, you're like, it's not like this is sexy. This is just weird. Like, what the fuck is going on?
And the girls look terrified.
Yeah, like they're dancing and they're like, can we go?
Jeez. I'm in the middle of the jungle in Vietnam. What the hell am I doing
here? It's bad enough that there's an enemy that might also kill me, but like, look at these troops. They're going bananas. Like, what is the situation?
And they storm the stage, of course.
They storm the stage. The girls get away. Like, they take the girls away in the helicopters, and it's just
DQ.
And the Susie Q, right? And like, it just descends. Martin Sheen just watches as this descends into madness, and the way he's looking at it is just like
voyeur on the whole thing.
He's looking at this like, well, what the fuck did you expect? Like, dude.
Yeah, I mean, and this is an important thing. Like, so it should be noted there's a couple of things that they added, and I'm not sure, Eric, you probably know. Was the voiceover part of the script, or did they add that later to clarify?
It was added later, I think. It
was added later because the voiceover was really good. Like the narrative in the background is really good, and this is supposed to be his thoughts about stuff going on, because basically, for a big portion of the film, he is an observer of the war, right?
Because he is like without the narration, it wouldn't be an internal film the way it should be,
right?
Yeah. Because what you're really examining is what's happening for Martin Sheen. Like, Martin Sheen's,
it's a POV situation.
Yeah, like these are everything that he's seeing is essentially him emotionally thinking through the process that will eventually lead him to becoming close to Kurtz
and make the decision.
Right. And so like it's an entirely metaphorical evolution of character, and you're seeing it and hearing it from his point of view. You're seeing what he's seeing and you're hearing what he's thinking, and everything else on screen just becomes a metaphor for what those emotions are for him. And so that's why you can be like these both very specific looking detailed events that also make no sense. Like, it becomes it's like a weird dream,
Sure.
And so like whether it's the air cav attack or whether it's USO or whatever, it's just like at some point you're like, what is really going on here? Because like, this is everything we're seeing is like this weird put on. Like, there is no, like, it's like
surfing, Playboy bunnies,
distractions,
distraction
from the reality of the matter.
Exactly.
Yeah, you just killed 100 people.
Exactly. And
Here's
so they
Playboy bunnies.
Right. And like one of my favorite fucking lines in the entire, I mean, this one doesn't get quoted a lot, but it's one of the best lines in the movie, is like, after all the fucking mayhem, guys hanging off the USO helicopter, like dude's hanging off a guy hanging from the helicopter and his pants are half down. Right. it's utterly bizarre.
They're literally hanging on to the helicopter trying to get to the Playboy bunnies as they're escaping their mayhem.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yes, so you guys understand what we're talking about.
And Martin Sheen comes on in the voiceover and says, "Charlie don't get much USO."
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Like he's just like for Charlie, like relaxation is like maybe we get some good decent rat meat.
Well,
right?
they show
And
them looking through the fence at the show.
They show them
Yeah, they do. They
Yes,
do.
Very important. Very
There's
important.
a real contrast there. That was a really important shot.
And showing that and talking about Charlie don't get much USO, what he is saying is like the people that we are fighting understand what war is. Like they don't have a choice in this fucking matter. They don't want to be here doing this. This is cruel insanity, and they understand
we're
that.
sitting here entertaining each other.
Yeah, and we're
jerking
around with playmates and surfing and all this other fucking shit, and we're pretending like it's not happening. Meanwhile, these guys are outside the fence. They're eating rat meat in tunnels, and they don't get much USO.
Right.
And because USO is a fantasy. It's total fantasy. That's the American fantasy that was fueling, like, please continue to go and murder people. And maybe when you get back home, you'll get a Playboy bunny of your very own.
Right.
That's basically what they're saying to the troops. Right? Go further up the jungle and like, you're just getting attacked from like things in the jungle you can't even see. Like there are toy arrows flying out of the jungle. Like you're just like, what's happening? Like the toy arrows, they're just toys. It's okay. Until someone actually fucking throws a real spear. And then what?
But that's the metaphor for the whole war.
That's the war.
You think it's just they're just throwing.
Yeah, we can be. We're
Yeah.
impervious. We're impervious. And
yeah, we're Americans, man. We got big ass guns and boats, and they're just toy arrows. No,
and the person who pays the price,
Chief.
Yeah,
Chief got killed by the arrow. And what's interesting is that Chief is so pissed off about him getting killed because he was just trying to. He tries to kill Martin Sheen to drag him into the spear that he actually got impaled with.
I know.
And he escapes it. It's amazing.
And another one of the great lines, unsung great lines, is when he is run through and Chief just goes, "A spear." Like, and whispers it. And you're just like,
all things
of all fucking things, a spear.
A spear. I was killed by a spear, not napalm,
not high technology, anything.
No, a spear.
A spear.
Like something that the Romans used.
Yes. Yes. And so like Chief dies, and then before that, the kid dies. Right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, right. Lawrence Fishburne dies as well. I mean, it's like the most ridiculously poetic moment. Obviously, first of all, they get mail in the middle of the jungle. I don't know how the fuck that happened. But
this is all true. Like they had this weird network system to deliver mail, where it's just like you're constantly just sort of trying to aim the mail towards where the last point you knew it was, and so it's traveling around on boats and all this kind of stuff. It takes forever, but like you'd end up with getting these tapes, like Lawrence Fishburne did, from his mom, right? And he's just listening to the fucking thing when shit goes wrong, and the tape continues to play even after Fishburne is dead and being lowered down into the water.
Right. So his mom is narrating what's going on back home when he gets killed. And
you keep your little hiney safe, and you're like, there ain't nothing left, my friend. That's the end of that. And the disconnect from actual home in America and his mom is so grand. And he's he's like being lowered into the river. Who the fuck knows where? Right. Like this is the truth of it. Like that's the truth of it. And his mom will
the thing that I also love is the transformation of the surfer guy who slowly goes into drugs and like it basically apparently he was on a bunch of drugs when he was filming the rest of
yeah, he's tripping on acid the whole time, and this is what's happening. This is the only way that he can deal. Like he's just like, I'm a fucking surfer from California and I'm seeing this shit. Of course I'm going to start taking a lot of drugs and trying to fucking tune out. It's the only way to live through it. right? And so like
Right.
he like his way and a lot of people's way to deal with the cruel insanity they're seeing is to make themselves insane so it just seems normal. Like that's the
Be
only
part
answer.
of the insanity,
Be
right?
part of the insanity. And so like, you know, especially by the time like, you know, they go and search the boat and like everybody in the boat gets killed, you know, and it's just a fucking disaster, you know, another disaster. That's the last moment of clarity for everybody. You know, it's just
Right.
like, well, now we're just fucking murderers. Like, how do we even deal with this?
Right.
You know, and
Just so people know, basically they run into a fishing boat in the middle of the river, and their orders are to search every fishing boat. And Martin Sheen says, skip it. And then the chief says, I can't skip it because we have to do this. And they end up searching it. Things go wrong. They end up killing everyone on the boat because they think they're about to be attacked.
right.
But it turns out that one of the women was just trying to protect a puppy.
Yeah.
And
That is
so
it.
they killed all these people on this small boat.
Right.
And then they take the puppy with them, which is fucking fucked up.
And because the puppy essentially becomes tied to the surfer as kind of a symbol, you know,
Right.
just like this, like the surfer was reduced to puppiness. Like,
Right.
like I'm just an adorable little object in the middle of hell.
Yeah,
right.
because he's a little California boy, blonde haired, blue eyed.
And then the puppy disappears with no explanation, you know.
Right.
And so when they're in the deepest part of the jungle, like the surfer's just gone. He's just now tripping. There's no like I'm just free floating. Meanwhile, you have like Chef's experience is just more and more desperate. Like I just want like he tells that great story about like they were teaching me to be a chef, and I was like, yeah, this sounds great. Until I saw like all this beautiful meat lined up, and they just dump it into this boiling water, and the meat just turns gray. Like,
right.
That's what's happening for him. That's the experience of being a soldier in Vietnam. Like you're all these young men with all like their lives are ahead of them. It's fucked. It's completely fucked. And all he did, like, I just want to go into the jungle and maybe find some mangoes, man. We'll have a mango, like me and Raquel Welch will have like a mango sex fest together, right?
Right.
And he goes in the jungle, and there's a tiger in the jungle, and the tiger fucking attacks them and almost eats them. They get back on the boat, and they're just like, the tiger, man, fucking tiger. And he loses his fucking mind. And it's just like, I'm never getting out of the boat, never get out of the boat, never get out of the boat. And then my other favorite,
never get out of the boat, right?
Never get out of the boat. And like, never get out of the boat. Absolutely goddamn right. Not unless you're prepared to go all the way.
Right. Which leads them to their ultimate destination. They finally get to where they're going, which is actually supposed to be in Cambodia.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That's Cambodia, Chief. Yep, exactly.
Yep.
And they get there, and reality has become completely unhinged.
Yeah, I mean, it's this is like Indiana Jones, kind of like it's gone crazy town at this point. Right?
Yeah, it's like you get this last bastion of like, okay, so there's still some troops out here, but it's like they're fighting, like they're fighting in the darkness with somebody over a bridge, and it gets blown up in the reconstructed bridge, and like it's just madness and fucking carousel music playing, and like you're like, what the fuck is going on? Right. And
but
like,
when they get to their final destination, it's like, oh, this is deep. Like,
and when they get beyond that, like another line from that one, the dude's like, there's like someone in the jungle that's firing at them. They don't know who it is, and they're like, oh, get the roach. And they get this guy out to go and kill the guy that's in the jungle in the darkness. And like, there's like they're screaming, yelling, and music. And Martin Sheen's just like, I just need to talk to your CEO. Who's your CEO? Right? And the guy looks at it and goes, ain't you? Like, and that's the last moment. Like, you never see the military again after that. Like, it's lost.
It's total chaos, dude.
Total chaos. Yeah. And then you're in the deepest jungle, where the only people that you're running into are Kurtz's people, who are all like, indigenous tribes people that he has brought under his control, or the enemy who has gone over to him.
It's a cult.
It's a cult. It's an absolute,
which we kind of
cult.
knew from the beginning, right? Like that was the thing, right? And so you show there, and they're all indigenous, as you say, et cetera. But mixed in with indigenous people are also Americans.
Americans who are just now stripped and painted, and like they are following the thing and all this stuff.
And there's a lot of dead bodies
everywhere.
Yeah,
just heads on the ground,
heads on the ground, people hanging.
Yep. It's just
all over the place.
It's a great thing you point out, because like you don't see this happening to anybody. Like you just get there, it's
all chaos.
Yeah, it's obviously constantly happening. You just like, you don't see it on screen. Like no one's like, oh, now we're gonna string the guy up and do something terrible. You're just like, clearly a day ago this happened, and nobody cares. Right. Like it just doesn't, like, it's not even played like, oh, da da. Like it's not like there's no stinger. There's no
explanation to it.
Yeah.
Nothing.
It's just this is what is happening. Right.
And who's the photographer who recently?
Dennis Hopper.
Dennis Hopper, right?
Dennis Hopper, war photographer, and Dennis Hopper is essentially playing Dennis Hopper. Yeah, and like this is what I said before,
Dennis Hopper, right?
Like this is, I think this is it. This is actually, Easy Rider is sort of the key of this movie, right? It's because like I initially didn't like Hopper until I had seen Easy Rider and I really understood the context that this is this is how Martin Sheen's character sees the 60s counterculture. Like he's like, you guys are a bunch of fucking twiddling idiots.
Yeah.
Like, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. You're with your mystical pretensions.
Amazing.
And, all this stuff.
Yeah. It's the hippie commune. It's literally a reaction about the hippie communes.
Right. And Sheen's looking at him just like, who the fuck is this? Literally a joker. Like he's like
the heads, man. The heads. You know, sometimes people just
And because what are you gonna say, man? You're like, and he starts trying to quote poetry that Kurtz has quoted.
Right.
Like he's trying to like, and just
when you start to realize, he says, "If is the middle of life." It's like, the fuck?
It's like, what kind of fucking nonsense is this?
Shut the fuck up.
And Kurtz also hates that guy. Like, that's that when you finally arrive to Kurtz
or something,
he's just like, I despise this motherfucker. Like, in fact, the only reason I keep him around is to throw shit at him. Right. Like that's pretty much it, and that is the point. Like now, when you finally arrived, when Sheen has arrived and meets Kurtz, like Kurtz is trapped. Like he is just like, he's surrounded by the madness that he has caused, that he was asked to do, right? And it's now an endless position. He is like the devil in hell. Right. Like, this is my job now. This is it. And he tells a story, one of the great stories in the film. It's just like, I came to like, go to this village and all these kids were inoculated because the American GIs showed up and inoculated all the kids to keep them from getting polio and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And,
oh my God, that story is horrible.
And the village elders came and they took all the kids and hacked off the inoculated arms. And they saw, well, there's a little pile of arms right there. And then Kurt says, and the answer was so genius. Like it takes such will to do it, but you can't refute that answer. Like that stops what the GIs were doing 100%. Like it's the end of the story. We have the willpower to cut off our own children's arms to keep you from being here. That's what we're going to do. Right. And Sheen is watching the truth of all this play out. Right. And Kurtz is all but inviting him to kill him. He's like, this is it. This is the end point.
That's the only reason he keeps him alive, is like, you are going to be my murderer. Yeah.
This is you're the only one I respect. You're the only one who sees it the way that I do.
And there's three people. I should note it. There's three people that are left from the original thing. There's Chef. Mm-hmm. There's the surfer guy. Mm-hmm. And there's obviously Martin Sheen. Right. Sheen. So Chef won't leave the boat, as we said. Mm-hmm. Right. But Martin Sheen gives him the information to radio to bomb the place, to destroy everything. Right. So he says, you have the information you need to make that happen. Yeah.
Drop an arc light situation on this. Take care of business.
Right. And so he does a radio check, make sure like, nope, I'm still in connection with them. It's like, what we need to do to make this happen. I just got to give the code and make that happen.
Right. And it then, never happens.
Right. So Martin Sheen arrives there, and then obviously they take Martin and they make him prisoner. Mm-hmm. Right. But they don't kill him.
Right.
And then at some point he's sitting there And then, he's obviously had several meetings with
Kurtz.
with Kurtz, and Kurtz shows up to him and gives him the head of Chef.
Chef's head. Yeah.
Chef's head.
Chef.
He's like, yeah.
He's
like, yeah. And he's like, oh shit. Basically, he's like, no, he's never going to bomb the place.
Right.
Like, you're a prisoner. You're trapped.
There's one thing you can do to stop this, and you have to do it. Like, you can't just have somebody else do it for you.
Yeah, you can't just have the call in the
call in
army
from space. Yeah, you can't get the cavalry to come in.
You have to do this. You have to do this.
This is it.
So he lets him go. Like, he actually he's released.
It took me long to understand what happened in this part of the movie. Once I got it, I was like, this, okay, now it's visionary. But they don't explain anything.
No, so he releases him. He's no longer handcuffed to the bamboo cage, right? He can walk around. He can call the army himself. But
do whatever the fuck you want, man. But there's only one way out.
Right.
Like that.
At which point he does the legendary thing, where he comes out of the river with all the camouflage on his face.
Yep. He's born out of the river.
Born out of the river. Very, very baptismal, right? Mm-hmm. And actually fulfills his destiny, which is to kill Kurtz, right?
Right. And this is intercut because they also filmed the an actual ceremonial slaughter of a water buffalo, right?
Right. And
you see the water buffalo get graphically decapitated in the movie. Jesus. So warning there. It's horrifying every time I see it. And that's intercut with Sheen kills Kurtz, and
sacrificial.
Yes, it's like, it says like this is the sacrifice. Like, this is it. Like, we are sacrificing this dude now, right? And so like emotionally,
I like when he comes out after that,
and he looks like fucking Kurtz. He looks like a leaner, meaner Kurtz.
And they all bow to him.
And they all bow to him. Like, he has become the leader of hell now. He is the chief.
And what's interesting is he grabs the surfer out of the insanity and brings him back. Like, come.
That's right. And because he's retrieving Lance is the sort of important thing to do here. Like, you're trying you're going through this passage, and on the other side, you'll find America again, right? ? And Lance is a fucking mess. Lance is ruined by this experience, and you don't know. The movie does not tell you
what happened to the guy there was another guy who went up there.
Oh, you see him in the movie. It's
I know you see him, and he stops. They see him with a beret on. Yeah, what happens to him at the end?
He's just stuck.
Wasn't he an important person? He was a guy that they saw in a video or something like that.
Yeah, he's like the first guy they go to say, like, go take care of Kurtz, and he does, and he just becomes part of Kurtz's crew.
That's right.
He does not have the ability to kill Kurtz, so he just becomes one of Kurtz's people.
Right.
And so so Martin Sheen is successful in terms of he's gone through the passage of hell to get.
But he's become Kurtz.
But he has become Kurtz. In order to get America back, he had to become the devil in order to do it. He has to.
He's the devil.
Yeah, and so the if you look at it simply as a spiritual investigation film, like, if the movie isn't real and you're just looking into, the heart of darkness that you're going into is Martin Sheen. Right. Like, he is coming to terms with his own cruelty and idiocy in getting involved as a soldier in this war.
There's no turning back, though, man. You're stuck in that. No wife, no family. You lose everything. How family was important to Brando's character was really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that was a big goal for him, right? He wanted Sheen to go tell his son what he's doing and why he's doing it, so that he didn't get an altered view of history of what his dad was doing, right?
Tell the truth.
So,
tell the truth of it. Because
Sheen was a father, or at least married, but you don't hear much about it. It's just that he screwed up, or it's just over.
Yeah.
In the film.
In the film, the film just ends. It just ends. He's made the transition.
Yeah, it begins as it ends, right?
Yeah.
It's instant.
This is an infinite state that you've entered. War. It is the most. To me, it's the most profound anti-war movie because it doesn't have a political point of view on war. It doesn't have even an emotional point of view on war. It just says, this is insanity, and stop lying to yourself. If you're suffering it, stop. that's the only way. Like, there isn't any other way. It's insane. You're murdering people. There's no way to make that right. There's no way to live with it. There's no way to do anything else but to kill it in yourself. That's it.
Yeah.
You know? And so the ending shot is this beautiful mix of like, you see Sheen's face and it crosses to this sort of Buddha sculpture, and the point of the movie is very much that. It was just like, there's only one piece, and that is to accept that war is insanity. Right. Like you can't beat that. It's impossible.
And he comes out and he's just covered with blood. He's sweating. And then you see him, he gets on the boat and disappears. And then they do this kind of cross-branding thing. He just reaches for a really cold Coca-Cola.
Oh,
and
it's so nice.
His head back.
I mean, usually I'm against that kind of stuff, but it's so true.
I'm so refreshed now.
Can you imagine how
the
good
heat
that Coke
and humidity
tastes?
here and the Coke, a little bit of lemon.
Sponsored by Billabong Surfing.
exactly. But yeah, dude. Like, and so like that's the thing is like the original cut of this movie is so like the original cut of this movie is so lean and magnificent in what it's saying.
What's funny is that you say it's lean, but it's still 2.5 hours.
Oh, it's very long. I mean, it's just like how I always say, it's like Bondarchuk's War and Peace is lean. It's also 7 hours long. Like it's as lean as it could possibly be to make the statement it's saying. Right. It has to take the time that it's taking. But like that's the incredible discipline that Coppola had in shooting something as brilliant as the French plantation sequence and cutting it out is landmark to me. Because you see that scene apart from Apocalypse Now, you're like, this should go in Apocalypse Now. You see it in Apocalypse Now, and you're like, this makes the movie kind of long. Like, I'm just like, this is a brilliant scene, but it's not actually, it's too, for me, it is too actually political. Like, it has nothing, this movie doesn't have anything to do with politics.
You kind of cut to the chase right off the beginning, right?
Yeah.
So
the movie is
I think it's an important scene.
Oh, it's important.
Yes.
It's a very important one.
Yes.
It just doesn't fit in the movie. Like, I think that it's an important movie. It's an important scene to see if you love the film. It's a good thing to see as an appendix to the movie. But I don't recommend it as Redux as the first watch because
Jason says it's a lean 24-ounce porterhouse.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the thing. It's like for Redux and for Final Cut, like I totally say, like people should see these things because you can see all the other thoughts that go into it. La-di-da. But as a first watch, stick to the original cut. It's literally flawless. You can't.
All right. We are way over, which is fine. It's our 100th episode.
But still lean.
We're still lean.
Still lean.
Yeah. We are as long as the complete Redux version of actually Apocalypse Now.
That's right.
We've had an amazing episode. Scott has been really gracious with his time and his stories. And we're able to actually ram through all of this stuff. Casey, thank you for joining us on this.
Yeah.
Any of you guys, I'm putting in our chat our Discord link for any of you guys who want to join our Discord. Our Discord actually is quite active. We don't have a huge amount of people on there, but those who are on there, we are very active in terms of our memes, and especially every morning we all play Framed.
A little framed off. Yeah, it's pretty great.
Framed off, and the competition of who can identify the film faster, which is a lot of fun. So it's been amazing. I can't believe I've been doing this for 4 years, and we're at 100 episodes.
Is it 4 years?
Exciting, man. It's pretty great. It's pretty
4 years, buddy.
Really?
4, yeah. Yep. So, very, very happy that we made this happen, and Scott wasn't.
Oh yeah.
Aren't you excited about that, Eric?
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
I feel old.
We've done. I tried to count it. It gets a little fuzzy to try and count. We've done over like 150, 160 movies. Because we're doing things in combos and threes. So yeah, like it's a lot. And it is kind of amazing that like we hadn't done Apocalypse Now. We've done like 150
Well, that's the
movies.
thing. Actually, I'm going to say that as a win. Like the fact that we've gone
like
through
the way
100
you just
episodes.
spin that around.
Yeah, because
it's
it just
stunning.
means we have a huge well of stuff to go through, and
Yeah.
like the fact that we missed Apocalypse Now is like great. Like 200th episode, like yeah, let's do another important film. Like
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever
Eventually,
it
we'll
is,
get
right?
back to we did do Citizen Kane with Meg, so we can lean on that one. But there's
we did do
more out
Citizen
there.
Kane with Meg, but that made sense, right? Because
Yep.
Meg just came out, and it
Yep.
sort of brought relevance to Citizen Kane again. So,
Yep.
but there's maybe we'll do Gone with the Wind at some point. Who knows,
Oh, Gone with the Wind. Yes,
right,
yes,
you know
yes.
what I mean?
Yeah,
like
that's right.
whatever. There's like a million things. Like upon the fact that we haven't done Lawrence of Arabia, right? Like that's
it's
another
true.
big one, right?
It's big one.
So-
It's big one.
And that was another Scott Ross Cinema Paradiso. Eric, you mentioned that one.
Yep.
So we'll get to all
I
those.
didn't know other people love that movie. Hey,
It's a great movie.
I've been watching Touch of Evil, and then I went to Psycho. I showed my daughter Psycho.
Oh yeah, how'd it go?
Oh yeah.
We should do that pairing because it's the
it's
same actress, and
Yeah, so good, so good. Gently, fantastic. Yeah,
it's really good.
yeah.
Showed
No,
my
man.
daughter Psycho the other day.
We still have lots and lots of stuff to do that. Yes, I watched the Casey says I watched the Flash Gordon episode. Did you guys ever talk about Disney's Black Hole or Excalibur? Well, we talk about Black Hole and Excalibur. We've actually mentioned it many times. We actually
Yes.
haven't done episodes.
Specifically,
on
we have
either.
not done that yet.
Yeah. I'm scared to watch because the last time I watched Black Hole is when I was a little kid, and I kind of liked it. But it's going to feel really bad looking.
I
at it
agree.
again.
I'm with Casey. I think like rewatch Black. It is not a good movie. It's a shaky mess, but it is a
Right.
fascinating shaky mess.
Yeah.
Really, really wild movie. Really wild.
And Excalibur is another weird one.
yeah.
What if they
Excalibur's
made
beautiful.
Flash Gordon, but Apocalypse Now, like Kurtz? Oh,
He's killed every one of them.
wow, 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 wow. Dun, 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 dun,
Kurtz.
dun, dun. Ah,
Yeah, I can see
he's in the jungle.
I don't think we need a Freddie Mercury though. We don't have a Freddie Mercury right now. That's the only way to
That
do it.
be
we
the
could
Freddie
do that, dude. That
Yeah.
would be so great.
I don't know.
But yeah,
But yeah,
that was.
that's,
I can't
Anthony's
believe-
saying it's very watchable. Black Hole is very watchable. Okay, all right.
yeah, no, there's like I have a lot of positive things to say about Black Hole, and like I know that Joe Kaczynski has also wanted to do Black Hole for a long time,
I heard.
and
I heard.
I think that there's a version of the Black Hole that is unique and spectacular and terrifying if they could figure it out. But
Yeah.
Disney is interesting. It's interesting.
It's interesting because that's where he started. That's his origin story, right? He's taking old movies. He started with Tron, man. He's
Tron,
like,
exactly.
So he's
Which has
got that
become
old-
Tron Legacy has become a bit of a minor classic for younger generations. It's interesting.
Yes.
Like that really changed. It was a bomb when it came out, and everyone's like, "Oh well, blah, that's it." But now it's actually grown in stature. People, it's like a lot of play on Disney, and I think interest has grown in doing.
There are.
Tron
I'm
3.
on several Facebook groups that are like huge Tron,
Yep.
like groups. Like
Yeah,
I
it's
didn't
very
expect that.
interesting.
Yeah.
It's like the low rent Blade Runner. I swear, it's a really strange little
the
piece.
low.
Well, and think about how long it took Blade Runner. Like we don't think about it because he's like, oh, whatever Blade Runner, but like it took a long time before people realized the
Oh, dude,
brilliance of
it
Blade
happened.
Runner,
The same
right?
thing for Blade Runner 2049. You know, like it bombed when it came out, and everyone's like, "Meh," and now it's like, well, okay, yeah,
Same
it's
thing
great.
in Union. It just took. You need
It's
to give
just a
lot of
little
work.
longer. Just a little longer. You let that cook. You let that settle in the kettle. It's gonna be good.
Anthony says he wants Neil Blomkamp to redo Black Hole.
That would be interesting. That would be interesting.
Yes.
I'm not like as harsh as we are on some of Blomkamp's screenplays.
Villeneuve should do it.
Villeneuve
Yeah,
is
so of course
wonderful,
I was
yes,
at Villeneuve.
of course, yes.
Yeah, no,
But-
I actually no. I'm gonna step back on that. I think that Blomkamp is gonna bring some darkness.
Blomkamp's been experimenting for a good long time. I have strong hopes for his next outing. Whatever it is,
Yeah,
I think he's in some interesting stuff. He's
Yeah,
always
yeah.
interesting. He's always interesting.
and I think Joe is like I appreciate his passion, but he may not be the right person for that.
Joe,
He
well,
could-
just I don't know. He'd make an interesting movie. I mean, he's a really good film.
Oh, he'd make a beautiful
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah, without a doubt.
He'll make a
But, like,
beautiful movie.
There's a dirty weirdness to Black Hole that
That Blomkamp could
Blomkamp
embrace.
could probably exploit pretty.
And I don't think Villeneuve can do it either. Like if Villeneuve would be too heady for it.
Yeah, no, it's got to be. There's something rough.
It's
and
got to
tumble
be
Black
something a
Hole.
little bit like gritty, and I think
Ugly.
Gaspar Noir.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Gaspar Noé's Black Hole would be
Oh my God.
insane. Oh my God, yes.
God,
yes.
that would be great.
Okay,
Well, what's
I
the
put
guy?
that.
The guy killing the sacred deer guy. That
Oh
guy.
yeah,
Yorgos, he's
Lanthimos.
great.
Yeah,
That would be awesome, dude.
That would be a wild black hole, dude.
That would be a
they take the fat-
disturbing
Yeah.
black hole.
They take off the masks of all the robots, and every one of them is Colin Farrell. Oh my God, I would definitely do it. Definitely watch that. Yes, for sure.
Yeah. Well,
What is upcoming for Martini Jet? What are we getting into?
Okay, so we've just done 100 episodes. So to me, that's a big landmark that I am extremely proud of, and also very happy to have behind us. But we have a lot of stuff going on still. For those of you guys who are new to this, we record podcasts live through Twitch, which I'm very excited about. And we do them every Saturday. We normally do it at a later time. We did it earlier because Scott's schedule, but also it helped out some of our people in Europe who could be part
I like
of it.
this
So
earlier schedule too, though.
if you guys want to try to figure out the earlier schedule, we can do that. I'm not
See what the
opposed
numbers
to that. We can still make that happen. Maybe it can invite more people. But if you guys want to do that, again, get on our Discord and say, hey, make the earlier schedule happen. I'm okay with it. It's just going to interrupt my fishing schedule, but
Really?
yeah, it's fine. It's
Or
fine.
we start doing it while you're fishing. It's not bad.
I just got to get back earlier, prep a few things. Anyway, so that's the thing on that. We are doing a lot of things at Martini Giant beyond podcasting. We're actually thinking creatively in terms of actually making things. Some of that is still obviously in development, so we're not actually going to be revealing too much at this point, but we're making some interesting things. But it's all related to the Martini Giant brand and what we want to do, and I'm excited about that. So I meet with Eric and Dan every day to talk about those things, and again, it's the best part of my day. So I'm excited about that. But yeah, be part of the conversation. Join our Discord. And I know people say that all the time in the Web3 world, but I am saying this is our peeps. These are things that are important to us, and we are not banging on what is a good movie and a bad movie. We're actually talking about our passion for movies, and this is a big thing for us. So, and that's been great. And if you guys have gone through the 3.5 hours of this podcast, you will notice that we are very passionate about these things. So excited to have that. Yeah, and Anthony was part of the conversation. Thank you, Anthony, for joining us. And you were absolutely wonderful on this podcast. So
yeah, chat in general, you've been totally amazing and very inspiring, and you keep the conversation rolling as we go. So thanks very much for joining.
The challenge has been you guys have actually said some amazing things on chat, but it's so hard to interrupt the conversation between Eric and Dan. And when Scott was involved, it's like, oh my God, I can't stop. They're like, by the way, something great happened in chat, but but it was I appreciate all of your input on chat, and I really was great to do that. All right, so next week we'll probably do a watch party. We haven't figured out what it is. So here's the deal for the watch parties, and something we started doing recently. If you guys are subscribers to Twitch, which really helps us out, you are going to be in the subscriber only section of our Discord. And that allows you to pick a watch party for us to do and be a guest on the actual watch party. And we would love to have you as that guest. So make sure and let us know if you are a subscriber. And we will put you on the subscriber only section. So like last week we did, or 2 weeks ago, we did Cherry 2000. That was hilarious.
Yeah, that was great with Rich Carlson. Fantastic time.
Yeah. And so that was a good one. And we've had a couple of other ones. So watch parties are generally movies that we don't actually have to analyze too much. Like Apocalypse Now needed a lot of discussion.
Cherry 2000 does not need a lot of explanation.
Yes. So we can just goof around on those ones. So the watch parties don't actually become podcasts. They just become experiences that we all can enjoy. But I would love to, let us know if you'd like to be part of the watch party and subscriber section. That would be really cool.
And the more people
also,
that we have involved in, say, our Discord, the more people can join us in the watch party overall. We need more people to join. So please spread the word about us. If you like the show, tell people about the Discord. Tell people about us on Twitter if you can, because the more the merrier. That's how that's going to work.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. I think we need to wrap this up. It's been 3.5 hours. This might be our longest episode.
I think it deserved it. It was fantastic. Scott
It
was
deserved
amazing. It was
it.
a great conversation. That was awesome.
Yeah, it was great. It was great. It was great. All right. Are you guys ready?
Let's do it.
All right. Drink.
Talk.
Drink.
All right. Good night, everybody.
100 episodes.
That was awesome.
Peace.
Thank
Fantastic.
you.
Thank you,
100
everybody.
episodes.